wrap up, we've got to do the resolution, the last resolution, which is the 07. So TJ, are you ready?
I'm unfolding my candy, come on up.
Good for you. We're all ready to rock and roll.
I'm doing just fine. You coming my way? Coming. Right here, behind me. Further. Further. And then start going left, not wide left.
Okay.
A little bit further.
Thanks, TJ.
Search, page 2 of 6. Switcher has no items. Access, search, page 2 of 6. F2. Pass, button.
Okay, we're not on.
Vertical scroll button.
Kevin Callie's gonna bring a small table.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, are we
I'll
on?
let you know when it gets here.
Okay, thank you so much, Larry. There, okay, we'll need power over there too. So we'll need power over there, but there's probably a plug-in over there somewhere, right?
There's power over there.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so resolution 2025-07, maintain Idaho Commission for the Blind location in the governor's office and continue federal and state funds. Whereas the Idaho Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired, ICBVI, provides training and for the adult blind business, enterprise programs, job search and placement assistance, summer programs for blind and visually impaired teenagers, and other essential services. And whereas these services are not available for any other agency, public or private, in the state. And whereas blind people who receive these services are far better prepared to become self-supporting and independent than those who do not. And whereas federal funds are appropriated
Hey, Siri,
through
open
the
Facebook.
U.S. Department of Education for a large part
Facebook menu.
of the budget in the ICBD for the U.S. Department of Education for a large part of the budget of the ICBDI, while state funds are also used, and whereas funding sources could be changed, it is essential that funding not be reduced, since the ICBDI has less funding than it really needs, and than it needs now. And whereas the ICBDI is located in the office of the governor, and functions well there. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the National Federation of Blind of Idaho that we call upon Governor Brad Little and the Idaho legislature to maintain the location of the Idaho Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired in the governor's office, and be it further resolved that we call upon Idaho congressmen and senators, as well as the state legislature to see that adequate funding of state funds are authorized for the Idaho Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired to continue its valuable services to the blind of the state, and the committee recommends it pass.
Madam President, it's under the governor's office, not in.
I'm sorry.
I tried to correct that in the meeting, but
Move its adoption.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, our resolutions have passed, and we will, if you get those to Susan Bradley, we will, make sure that they're, sent out appropriately. And if you're wondering why I'm not on the mic, because my guide dog, who I'm trying to get out.
what now?
Okay, can we do chapter reports, 5 minutes per chapter? Sure.
Can we get a microphone somehow?
Of course, there's a traveling one, and Nate probably knows where it is.
I got it right here.
Okay, which chapter wants to go first?
I will.
Okay.
Snake River Valley chapter. We had a couple of fundraisers last year. In October, we did let me back up. I guess in April, of last year, we did a fundraiser at the Homestead Pizza and Bowling Alley. We had a little auction. We made a little bit of money. I forget how much. In October, we did our fundraiser with Jersey Mike's. I believe that brought in $615 for us. And during the Thanksgiving Christmas season, we sold movie tickets and discount cards. And that brought in, I believe, around $900 for us. And the Jersey Mike's and the movie tickets will probably be something that we will do again this year. We had a great picnic in August, and as you heard earlier today, Dana was able to come over and participate in that with us. So that's my report.
All right. Good job on fundraising.
Thank you.
Okay, Treasure Valley chapter.
Over here, Liz. That's what I am. Hi. Hey, with the Treasure Valley chapter, we've been kind of growing and gaining people here and there, and a lot of our people work with NWABA, and they pass the word, and our great teachers let me know so-and-so's thinking about NFB, and they give me their phone number, I give them a call, and we've been gaining some new members. We had our bike ride in May, and it was very successful. This year, I didn't write down the numbers as far as how much we made. We gave some to national, some to the state, kept some in the chapter, and we're keeping some we kept some in transportation. We have our transportation funds that when people use transportation, mostly Lyft and Uber, they send their receipts to Al, and Al turns them into a check and walks to the post office and sends it. And it works for us. It was started by our anonymous donor, and we're keeping it going. So we did have a successful bike ride. Our chair decided that it was a little too much for him with a full-time job and the bike ride, and so we weren't sure what we were going to do. And then Joe and Cindy spoke up and said, we'll see what we can do. We'll start now. We'll start right now, and we'll just get it through. And they have done a wonderful job.
I wanted to point out, Cindy and I are still in physical therapy from the Army.
Yeah, remember who did the Army?
I just reassured them and said, you know, we all work together. And then we always have our program with the View kids, our activity, and we played beach baseball and kicked soccer balls and rode tandem bikes and had a nice picnic. And then we had a fall picnic. And then
Halloween.
what am I missing?
Oh, we
had our Halloween
January
party.
was-
That
No.
was fun. And
Good.
what's that? Oh, yeah, Marcy
Okay,
did
it's over there.
crafts and
Thank you, Larry.
Joe and
One
Cindy
chair or two.
decorated
fine.
and planned we
Is there a
had
couple waters? Could you
baked
grab
potatoes,
Yeah, two
Idaho
waters.
potatoes.
water?
Yeah, for two.
Okay, and we had games.
Is that okay?
And then first part of December, that first weekend in December, we had a Christmas party, and we always have a good group at the Christmas party, and more food than we can eat, and a lot of choices, and
Thanks so much,
it's been
Larry.
a really good year
Sweetheart.
for Treasure Valley.
Yay!
We'll have to reset the
All
room.
right, do a break real quick. Yes.
It's this room.
Okay,
I
we're
don't
gonna do
remember.
Subway gift cards, some chargers, and some like push and pull chargers up here. A Radio Shack, which I don't know if there's any more Radio Shacks around anymore. There's a $5 off gift card for that too. Okay. There's Emily Grover's.
Emily Grover.
Emily
Emily
Groves.
Groves.
Great, well, thank you for returning my.
Olivia's coming to you.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna make this next, there's a couple of pieces of information that I need, and perhaps Susan, you can make some notes on it. My technology is doing stupid things right this instant, things that I've never seen before, which technology can do. Okay, I wanna know who, if the funds were available, would attend the national convention this year.
And I don't want to know, this time I don't want flex, I want names. I want names of people that are interested, and maybe Susan, maybe you could copy these for me. Well, I'm fiddling it.
Ramona.
Yes.
Oh, I will, wants to go.
Yeah, if funds are available,
Diamond
you could go, but
Yes, ma'am. Marcy
Just
would want
raise
to
your
go.
Okay.
Elaine.
Okay, wait a minute, hold on. Susan, are you writing?
I'm writing.
oh yeah, we go together.
Okay, because the technology students. Okay, so we have Ramona, of course, and Marcy, great, and Lyman.
Marcy.
And Elaine.
Lynn wants to go, good.
Cindy.
Cindy wants to go.
Cindy wants to go.
Veronica are going,
Huh?
but you want that on the list, right?
Well, it'd be nice to know.
Yes, I'll tell it.
And Joe and I
Joe and Cindy are going. And I,
We
yeah,
paid for it before.
Veronica's going.
and Veronica, good.
Veronica, Cindy.
Lynn and Liz,
Was that Lynn?
tonight.
And Bose and Kevin would can certainly,
Okay,
seriously can make it happen.
okay. Now, for those of you who have never been to a convention, and that would be Lynn and Liz and
Marcy.
Marcy, yes, was that,
Cindy, he hasn't gone.
and Bose
And Diamond.
and Diamond.
Yes.
Well, Diamond, have you been?
And Veronica.
And Veronica, okay.
His mother would.
You need to apply for a Jernigan scholarship. And you can get it off the website, like Donald told you. I can also, if Susan, if she will, send me the names. I've got it because I just sent it to somebody else. So I can send it out to you, but the due date is April 15th, and they say if you wait until April 15th, then the president doesn't get to write a letter on your behalf, because there's not enough time. So that's one way to get some money perhaps. Now, they can't get it to everybody, but if you don't apply, you don't get it. Now,
Anna, can I
yes.
go down my list? Make sure I didn't miss.
Okay,
anything.
sure, absolutely.
So Dawn is going, Ramona's going, Marcy, Jacqueline, Diamond, Cindy Barajas, Veronica, Joe and Cindy Grover are going, Lynn Knife and Liz, Bose and Kevin.
And me,
Oh, damn.
Well, yeah.
Susan.
And-
Put
And
you in
Sobronics.
and Springs, right.
Surprise.
And,
And Kristen.
and who?
Sobronics.
Sue and Larry.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Ramona.
If people that apply for the Jernigan Fund Scholarship send a copy to Dana, that will facilitate her recommendation.
Right. That form is pretty easy, and I found out the other day, our national office did send it to me, attached, when they sent me a note requesting that I write on behalf of an individual who had applied, so, I'll do that, but you gotta get on it.
Because her recommendation matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that wouldn't.
Because what the recommendation does is we have to categorize, we have to say this person has high, I can't remember, there's different categories of where you think the person fits, that they're low priority, middle priority, something like that. You know, and they don't want everybody to say this, everybody's really high priority.
They are.
Well, but yeah, I hope you know what I mean. It's like with scholarship applications, you don't say that everybody is, you want everybody's great, especially if maybe they need a little more seasoning to get, to be higher. So anyway, there's that. The other thing I wanna know is, next year when we're planning, what would you take in terms of room rates? What amount would you take? Because that's gonna make a difference in where you go. State, for state,
110.
okay?
Well, I know it, but.
Will anybody go higher, want to go any higher than 110? And does that include tax or not?
Obviously, no.
Just because I can go higher.
Say 150.
150.
150.
Are you saying
Yeah,
150?
but can everybody?
No.
Including tax.
Down, maybe we need to vote.
Well, I don't think we're voting, I'm just trying to get an idea of how high, if we can only go to 115, we need to know that. Because we're being- Oh, 150, excuse me.
Well, the higher you go, the more people that
But
are being
how many
excluded.
people can go 150?
Well, if you're sharing a room, then it's half that much. Well, if you're sharing a room, it'd be half that much, right?
Or are you thinking 300 and the half is 150?
No, it would be 150 and you're sharing the room, but can everybody go to 150?
I don't believe everybody can.
No, I don't either.
Okay, so,
Shane says 120.
okay, 120,
He texted me.
okay.
125 maybe? That's high.
We've already pushed it $15 over what I started.
Okay, so what can you guys live with? Because this is gonna dictate what we find as we explore. So if 120 is it, if people, the majority feel that they could do 120, then that's what we'll do.
Dana, this board,
Yeah,
here's what I was thinking. If we go, if we're going away from Boise, which we probably are, then remember, you guys, we're not only paying for hotels, we're paying for a bus to get there, we're paying for your meals, because we don't always have something in a hotel like this convention. So you've got to take all those things into consideration. And that's why I said a hotel alone, 110, because there comes a time when I said, yeah, I can't help it. I just have to say, no, I can't go this year. And I've already done that about the national organization, so I hate to do that about the state too.
Well, I think maybe right now to settle it, we could say 110 to 120 and see what we get. I think it's going to be difficult. And then we have to decide how much state money would we want to spend on hotel rooms. And the problem with a lot of that is that if you have high expense on conference rooms,
Yes.
and we did that with Riverside in 2023, and it sent our budget almost into the ground. And
Another thing I wanted to say, I forgot last night or didn't have a chance. I think, if you haven't thought of it, we ought to look into Nampa too. It's sure it's close to Boise, but it is someplace.
We have done that before, but then nobody's come up with it.
well, when Frank was looking, it didn't look like it was much better, but you're right, we can look at Nampa, we could probably look at Caldwell.
And we have looked,
But we can do it again, but we are gonna have to do some exploring, so that at least gives me something to work with.
And I suspect it kind of limits to Twin here or Idaho Falls possibly.
Yeah.
Well, Idaho Falls was one of the highest ones we did too, and there were reasons for that, we almost got skinned. But anyway, part of that was, we had a misunderstanding with them, and they had a misunderstanding with us, and we just both took ownership, so. Looking for hotels is an interesting thing, which I'll have to teach them, whoever becomes president. I'll just tell them horror stories, and they might not want to be president. Every year it's something new. Okay, I've gotten the information I really need. We have more questions that I could have addressed, but I want to give the last piece of this to Ramona, who wants to talk about the contest. And that's going to probably help me with some of these other questions.
Oh, you want me to actually present it now or just?
No, you can't. You asked me for some time.
Okay, well, I can do it. I'll come up to your mic.
Or Liz can give you one.
Either way,
Find the mic.
she's on her way. I might be able to get there as fast as she can get.
Oh, I'm sure you're pretty good.
Like chase around the room.
Frisky.
No, we're sitting next to each other. That's why she was saying that.
Okay. I just want to say, we had 5 excellent entries for this contest. They were all good. We should do every single one of them. I would be glad to tell you what they all are, but I think that's for the banquet. We have obviously found a way to get people to think. And I really do think we should do every single one of the suggestions we got. And we have people who offered to lead it. Isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
So I move that we make this an annual event. And, well, let's deal with that, and then I have one more thing to say.
I second Ramona.
Yiska seconds it. Yiska and I had the pleasure of reviewing these entries.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now, we probably need a bigger committee, not too big. Megan helped with it last year, and she was good help. I love doing it, and I think Yiska does too, but we need somebody new, at least one new person every year, because it is a lot of fun to do, and we learn from it. So I don't need to say more than that right now, but we will talk about the winners tonight, so.
Okay, let's have, before we go into the next with our scholarship winners, let's have an auction item.
Did you get to a microphone, Dana?
Yeah, in a minute.
Oh, we're trying to stream so everybody can
Oh,
hear.
sorry, it doesn't come on the screen. I'm so sorry. Now I did it.
You just like to be rude.
I will not forget that the rest of the convention.
Yeah, right.
And if I do, what should he do to me? Yeah.
All right, you can be snarky if you want.
No. I'm kidding you.
Patience is wonderful.
I'll do it. I'll try my very best. Are we ready for the auction? Good for you. Borrow it.
All right. What's your favorite one?
Okay, so this one is a fan favorite. This one's Melaleuca. If anyone doesn't know what Melaleuca is, Melaleuca is a self-describing business that uses natural products. It's fantastic. Tea tree oils, all sorts of different wonderful oils. There is lotion, there is mint, there is body wash, more lotion, there is their popcorn, there is some of their granola bars, shampoo, conditioner, just multiple products.
Your eucalyptus
Items.
space.
It's probably worth at least like $2.
You got enough eucalyptus in your area program.
We're gonna start with $50. Anybody wanna give me $50?
Right.
50. Anybody wanna give me 60? Okay, 60. Anybody wanna give me 70? 70? Oh, Jim's going 70? Anybody go 75? 75? We're sitting at 70. We're still at like $130 difference.
Oh, we can go higher than that.
Dana's gonna get some really good
Wrap
stuff.
this up, so.
Okay, let's,
Hurry.
70 going once,
75.
75 going once. Anybody wanna go 80? 75 going once, 75 going twice,
Yeah.
75 going to Veronica. Congratulations.
Well, that's good. Veronica's a good friend.
Better microphone now. I said Veronica's a good friend for the screen, because I didn't have her mic. All right, now we have an opportunity to hear a little bit more about our scholarship winners and their journey. And what I have said to them is, you know, everybody has had people or events in your life that have helped you to get where you are now today. And since we've heard, you know, the basics of what their degree is gonna be in and what they wanna do, I thought it would be really interesting for people to share a little bit more about who helped them through their journey and how they did it. So the scholarship winners need to come up here, if they're not up here already. Up here being where I'm standing, off the mic, and I'm doing it so they can hear me. Okay, is everybody up here yet? Okay, well, you wanna draw straws with who's gonna do it first, or do you, somebody wanna just dive in? Oh, good, there's Storm, the guy, he's gonna set our example. So here to talk to us for a few minutes, probably not more than 5 if we can try, is Storm Sobel. And he is gonna take the mic.
4. Scholarship winners. This is the sheet.
I've had a lot of people who helped me through my career in blindness. And
The main person I want to give credit to is my vision teacher, Jill McHale. And I worked with her shortly after I went blind when I was 8, and all the way through high school. And she really just motivated me to pursue my passions and just never give up on my dreams. And even though at the time I didn't really know what those dreams were, I wasn't passionate about too many things. I was really stuck in the mindset of I can't do it because I'm blind, and it took a long time for me to grow out of that. I spent years hiding my blindness, not using any of my assistive technology, not wearing my glasses, and really just struggling because of that. I can remember being a teenager and not using a cane or my glasses or anything, and the only way I could get to and from my friend's house was I would count the streetlights at night. It was not safe or ideal whatsoever. I honestly don't know how I got around at all. But if it wasn't for Jill, I don't think I would have ever started using my glasses or using a cane when I need it, or even using a hand magnifying glass in class. Another person I want to give some credit to is Jackie Stallings, my ICBBI rehabilitation counselor. Again, I really didn't want to get involved in anything in the blind community. Really couldn't stick to myself. And
Bless you.
she really pushed me to join the sweat program, and that was an amazing experience for me. It gave me an opportunity to have a really, really good work experience and get to meet a lot of other blind people my age, kind of to see how everyone else dealt with their path in life. And it really opened my eyes to just the different avenues of careers I could take. I remember meeting so many different people doing so many different jobs, like a chiropractor, just people doing amazing things with minimal eyesight, even less eyesight than I have. And it just amazes me the things that we can all do being blind, and our blindness really doesn't define us. And that's why I decided to go with the surgery, despite being a very different field. And it's not easy, but I've been making it work, and I really am just so thankful for everyone who's helped me get this far and supported me through everything. So, yeah, thank you to all of you for having me here this year for the second time. This has really been amazing. I love meeting everyone and hearing everyone's stories and their background, and I love that we can all share this crazy life together. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Storm. I know Jill McHale, and I know some of her other students. She's been around a long time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, she used to teach in Twin Falls, and one of my very good friends, Delane, Exley Mordell, had her, and so she's been very helpful to a lot of blind people. All right, who wants to be next?
All right. Take it away. And this is Emily.
Sorry.
If I sit down, you won't be.
So as you guys know, my name is Emily, and there have been a lot of people in my life that have really helped me to get to where I am right now. And some of them continue to help me as I, progress in my life. And because I live so many places, there's just so many different people that kind of gave me different building blocks. But the first person I think I'd like to thank are my parents, who really, their philosophy of raising me, which I know is pretty unique, is that they were going to treat me the same way as they treated all the other children, and that has been incredibly amazing because I've seen a lot of other blind people who had a different experience and how that has been harder for them as they've grown up and realized that they are as capable as anyone else. And because my parents instilled that in me at a really young age, that's been really beneficial to me. And so I thank them so much for that, and also just for giving me all sorts of crazy and cool experiences that a lot of people don't get to have, like hiking and biking and all these things that so many blind kids don't get, especially at a young age. And another person that I think I really should thank a lot is my very first teacher that was visually impaired. He was actually blind, and his name was Chad Brown, and he was really skilled with technology and Braille, and he really gave me a super strong foundation in those areas. And so I know a lot of other kids, just in a lot of places that I've seen, they don't get a lot of these things until a lot older, and it's a detriment to them. And so I'm really thankful that I was able to have all these things at a really young age so that I have a strong foundation, so that when I did encounter a lot of lack of services in other states that I lived in, I was able to deal with it a little bit better because I had that foundation. The next person I really want to thank is also my first mobility specialist, who was actually the wife of my first CBI. It's kind of funny. And she also gave me a ton of really strong skills, but she also kind of gave me a vision for like what my life could be as a blind adult. Another person that I think, or not just like one person, but just like people in general that have really helped me is I've gone to a lot of blindness community like conventions in all the different states that I've been in. And a lot of the blind adults that like speak about their lives, it really inspires me and helps me to like see what my life can become when they talk about like their successful careers and their successful families and all these things. It really helps me to know that even though I have all these extra challenges, I can still overcome them and become my best self and whatever I want to be. As I go into college, as you guys know, my chosen career field is ornithology, which is studying birds. There's a lot of accessibility challenges that I know I'm going to encounter when I go into that field. I don't know of any other blind person that's done ornithology before. There's one blind professor that studies mollusks, and that's the closest I've been able to find to actually contact him, and we had a really good conversation. But so there's a lot of barriers I'm going to have to break down when I go into that field, and so I'm really glad that I've had all these foundations and the support network, so that when I go into that and encounter all those challenges, I'll be able to handle it with self-advocacy and all the different things that I need to. So I thank you so much for giving me this NFB scholarship, and thank you so much for being here and listening to me talk about this.
It's exciting to know that Emily was able to have a capable blind teacher to teach O&M.
No, TBI.
Oh, TBI, okay. But I think it's so impactful when a blind person can be influenced by someone, and everyone, and I'm not going to tell it, everyone knows my story that knows me at any time about the first blind teacher I had when I was 5 and how she impacted my life. All right, we're going to move on to, we've got 2 more, they gotta flip that coin or whatever, decide. Okay, Taylor, right? All right, Taylor is here, and I'm so glad she is. Let's hear her story.
Hi. Okay, so I chose to focus more on the events that influenced me more than the people. Sorry to all the people who influenced me. Anyways, so first things first, I like to write, so I decided to start this out with a literary term, sort of. It's more of an argumentative term. So term is a slippery slope. This is basically like there's one event that just keeps leading into the other and leading into the other until it just keeps going and going to the worst possible outcome. And that is how I describe my life. So basically, 2006, I was born. It was pretty obvious that I was not a normal baby and that I had to go through a ton of surgeries and stuff that I was able to happen. I don't know why I said it like that, sorry. And then up until, I believe it was 7th grade, I just kept having more and more surgeries that just helped me survive. And I am very happy about that.
Us too.
And then after 2nd grade, it all stopped, and I was happy to just keep living my life. I had to sit in the front row, and I had to wear my glasses, but for the most part, I was fine. I could see okay. I couldn't see as well as anyone else, but I was doing pretty good. 2019, everything goes wrong. In 2019, my right leg attached, and this is like the first part of the slippery slope I mentioned earlier. And what's not important about this is, like, it's not important that I started going blind. Everyone here started going blind at one point or another. What's important about this is how it influenced me. This event was the first of many that would just keep hammering down on me, trying to get me to break. It took me a while before I finally started to feel that, because for the first 2 or 3 years, I was doing well. I was, like, I knew that I was struggling, but for the most part, I kind of was just like, I still had some vision, so I put off that blindness until some unknown future date. That unknown future date came a lot faster. So the vision in my right eye kept going and going and going until it was gone. And the vision in my left eye, although not as fast, it kept going as well. And these events kept influencing me, and more I lost my vision, the more scared I got. And that was one of the big things. So in junior year, it was sophomore and junior year. There was just more and more things. I was having problems with my friends. I wasn't hanging around people I was happy with. And everything just kept hammering down on me until I had really bad depression at the time. It was really hard. And that was when I went to go see a therapist. This is what I was leading into. So for a few years before that, I had already known that I wanted to be a therapist in my future. But it was when I first met my therapist and got to see what they were doing in action that it really helped me realize that this is what I want to do in my life. I want to be able to help people in this way because I've seen how much it can help me. And there's just been so much in my life that has tried to hammer me down. And I hope that in the future I will be able to help people who feel the same way. Thank you all for giving me the scholarship so that I will be able to accomplish this goal and help people who need it. Thank you.
Well, and of course, one of the things that, as you go along, that can be there to help you and lift you up and show you good examples are people from the National Federation of the Blind. Because, we know that blindness does not define us. We can live the life we want. It doesn't matter whether the vision goes, stays, or what it does. We can do it, and we have people that can show that it can be done. So I'm just really glad to hear your story. And by the way, we do have as one of our members a therapist, mental health counselor who's blind guy. And he lives in Pocatello. I get confused because sometimes he does things in Idaho Falls, but he's made a career of it and has worked really hard. And of course, here we have Yeska, who is also working to get the certification for, Yeska, is it your not your counseling, but what are you getting your certification, your hours?
He just stepped out of the room.
Oh, well.
Then I look for social work.
It's a little confusing because I know a little bit about schooling, so anyway, but the point is, we've got people here, and of course you've got Nicole, who just is finishing up, so you've got some real partners as you go along your way. All right, that leaves Mia. And so Mia, would you like to come and talk to the group? Huh?
Yes.
Yes.
just thanking the blind community. So I was born with optic nerve hyperplasia and nystagmus. I had no vision in my right eye, and 20 out of 200 in my left. This impacted my education throughout elementary school in negative ways. I often was put in special ed classes. Though I was put in these classes, I was not getting taught Braille, mobility, or having larger print, so it was a little bit hard to keep up with classes. However, my parents, who I would love to thank as well, kind of teamed up with the Commission of the Blind and helped me kind of enroll in a homeschooling program, Connections Academy, that helped me a lot with the accommodations. For instance, using this program, I was able to advocate for myself a little more in the sense of getting computers with larger monitors and extended deadlines for certain assignments. And all in all, that really helped me to see that I was more capable. Those years of kind of falling behind and not really knowing exactly what I was doing throughout elementary school kind of made me feel like I couldn't do as much just because I was blind, visually impaired. And so I feel that the blind community and just the general support system I had of my family really helped me to advocate for myself and see how I could do things in different ways to still find ways to succeed. And this influences my future in the College of Idaho by giving me the desire to be a music education major. Through pursuing education, I hope to focus on every student that I encounter and really just try to find ways to help them succeed. Because the education that I've experienced, no matter what, shows that children can succeed. And I just really want to show that throughout education. And currently I'm working in tutoring and just general education classes, kind of working on teaching, and I just hope to make an impact. And I would just want to thank the National Federation of the Blind of Idaho for giving me this scholarship. It's an honor to be attending this convention and being surrounded by all these blind and low vision people that are capable of so much. And just thank you so much. All right.
Well, these are some pretty remarkable young people who know that their future will be bright, and we will stay with us so that we can help them in their journeys. All right, we're prized.
Yeah. Lydia, grab a name. We'll do the coffee with the coffee cups and a Subway gift card. That's the last one, I think. Last Subway gift card. DM Solis. Let's cop it, just like you want. Okay, we have another one. Yes. We have another one. Yeah. Grab a name. We'll do socks with a $20 bill. Socks with a $20 bill. Yeah, there's spike socks. So we got BSU, we still got one pair of BSU left. We got the ISU and U of I ones left. Kevin, Pete,
Bernie. Okay, stop
Let's stop with school.
ISU?
Which school do you want, Kevin? You vandals.
What's that?
Which college do you want?
Boise State, of course.
Well, you could always do ISU.
Yeah, ISU's a good second.
Well, we have a bit of time, and it's on the agenda too, for an election item. I hear we've got lots of them.
Where's the 20? Oh, I see it. There's your 20. And there's some socks for you all. Okay.
Okay, I trust you.
Here comes Natalie and Amber.
All right, what you got, girl?
Okay. Yep, that's the one. Liz calls it one enchanted evening basket. This one's gonna be a lot of fun. Okay, what does it include, Amber?
Okay, so it has the South Pacific DVD, Florence assorted chocolates, 2 pounds, $120 gift certificate towards a stay at either Black Swan Hotel in Blackfoot or Destinations Inn in Idaho Falls. So,
How much do you think it's selling for?
oh, it's
Start this one at 50. Okay, who wants to give me $50 for a fun getaway? 60. Marcy's going on you. Do I hear 65? Anybody want to go on a getaway for $65? To a nice, I don't know, Thailand room or Egypt or. Yeah, come on, guys, you can go higher than that.
Go to the jungle.
65. Okay. We're at $60. Marcy's going on a getaway for $60. Going once. $60 going twice.
70.
Oh.
Okay, $70. Anybody want to go 75? Okay,
Fun.
$70. 70 to Vicky going once. 75. 75. Anybody want to go 80? 75 going once. Okay, 80 to Marcy. 85. 80 once. 80 twice. So Marcy. Oh, come on, fun getaway and chocolates and.
Our baskets,
I think they do those as a banquet though. That's right, so you want tickets first.
I mean, it's the card I bought from Larry.
Yeah, you got those 2 cards?
Yes, the one I bought from Larry. Yes.
You gotta bring those tonight.
So the gentleman that donated it, he's an access bus driver, and he just heard us talking about donations, and he said, I'm really crafty, and so he makes all of these. It's like barnwood, and it's the old style toolbox, and it has a copper handle.
Oh, how
on
nice.
it. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, my stepdad's a woodworker, and these are, there's a lot of love in
It's
these.
pretty big.
It's hefty, it's probably.
Yeah, and it's hefty. It's very sturdy.
Oh, I could use a nice tool.
It would be beautiful, put some fun like flowers in it, or something. Or Father's Day's coming up, you could put some like beer in there, with your favorite jerky, or some soda, and your favorite gift card, or whatever.
Would you say like maybe 2 feet wide?
Yeah. And then a foot.
2 feet wide by 6 inches.
And it's tall.
The card I bought from Larry yesterday.
You need to buy 2 cards or just one?
The ends are taller, the sides, the end caps are taller.
You can find them.
Okay, we're gonna start at 50.
60.
Ramona says.
I'll go 60.
Okay, Jill says 60. Anybody want to do 70?
It's a one-of-a-kind toolbox.
Okay, Veronica's a 75.
100.
Okay.
Veronica, 110. Anybody else go 110?
Whoa.
Ron, just like one time. 150.
120?
Shane says
125.
125.
140. 150 back here.
150.
150 back there.
160.
You don't want to lose that one. That's a
Okay,
one-of-a-kind.
160. Anybody want to go 165? Okay, 160. Going once? Going twice? Congratulations,
So good. We gotta get you on the phone.
We haven't had such a good time bidding like that since, somebody mentioned Fred Baker the other day. I think it was Beth, and I remember a big battle over I think it was probably a box or something that Harry gave with.
I think it was a jewelry.
It was a jewelry, that's right. And they got into it, and he said, hey, if I make a second one, will you do it? Will you pay for it? And they agreed. So anyways, this is always so much fun. Now we're going to hear from Ramona Roja. She had earlier this year given a presentation, or at least it was an article on why the museum for the blind was so important, and I was absolutely moved by it. I didn't know half of what it was saying and in the way it was written. So I asked her if she was willing to speak, she said yes. And her topic is how and why I am still learning in the Federation. And so without further introduction and spending any more time listening to me, let's hear from Ramona.
Well, I tend to think about the present and the future as much as I can in the Federation. But I have had a very fun history in the Federation, and I feel very, very fortunate to have had it. I have to say, the Federation has been a large part of my life, but by no means all of it. I mean, I did have a career. I did everything from a vending facility to a bakery to a business that I ran for 25 years. And I raised 2 kids. I'd love to tell you all afternoon about my grandkids. I'm very proud of them. I've been on the board of my church. And I've had a busy life, not just the Federation, but the Federation has probably taught me more than most any other organization I've been a part of, including my own business. I learned a lot from being in business. So I will give you some background, and I'm old. I'm sorry that I'm older than dirt, because I have to go back and tell you my roots a little bit. When I was a college student in Washington, D.C., the convention came to D.C. I was avoiding the Federation. When I graduated from high school, I went to a school for the blind, and I figured what I needed to do is get away from blind people and prove that I could function in the real world. So I thought the Federation was the last thing I needed, until it came to Washington, D.C., and I was there, and all my friends came. I knew a lot of blind people, having gone to a school for the blind and having had a little bit of training at the training center in Des Moines when Dr. Jernigan was the director, and he was a wonderful mentor. So when the convention came, I went to the convention, and first thing I visited in the presidential suite, the president, somebody most of you have never heard of, was Russell Klensing. He was the president, and in his suite, I met a man named Gaspar Spellhouse. He went by Bert. And he was a very interesting man. He said, I came over from Holland with my family when I was 5 years old. And they kept us on Ellis Island for 2 weeks because I was blind. I was shocked. Yes, it had been 60 years ago, but I never dreamed that my country, that we all bragged about and loved and thought was wonderful, would keep a family on Ellis Island. And if you remember your history, that's where they kept people to decide if they were going to let them in the country or not. In New York City, it's not used anymore, but people that they were going to reject were kept there while they decided. And to think that they would consider, even for a minute, to reject an entire family that was perfectly willing to work. He was from Holland, and Dutch are hard workers, in case you haven't come across that. To think that that would happen just shocked me. And I thought, if it can happen, I better pay attention to what's happening among other blind people. And there were enough other items at the convention. The Indiana affiliate had gotten 5 pieces of legislation passed through their legislature that year. Didn't matter what they were. The fact that a blind group could do that got my attention. So I was ready to join. Then the DC affiliate was a weak, pitiful group. I'm sorry, but it was. And I had been to a meeting, Dr. Regan dragged me on to a meeting once before the convention, and I was embarrassed. But my friend Tom Bickford said, I need you to join the DC affiliate. Well, of course, you know me, I said, why? He said, because I'm going to run for president and I need your vote. Well, I could do that. He wasn't asking me to do something that was hard. And so I joined, and I recruited other people to join, and Tom Bickford was elected president, and the DC affiliate turned around. Now, it didn't take much for me to do that, but guess what was happening to me? I was becoming a federationist. I didn't go to the 66 convention. Why? Because I was in the Soviet Union touring. I was a Russian major in college, and I went there and toured for the summer, and I missed the 66 convention. But I went in 67, even though my income was still student income, I did what I could do to get it together, and it was in Los Angeles. And there were no divisions in the Federation at that time, except the merchants, which was vendors. And we organized a student division at that time. The guy who wanted to organize a student division, we didn't think would make a very good president, so I helped to politic around and get somebody else elected. And I managed to get myself elected secretary. And there was a young man from Idaho named Chuck Walhoff who got himself elected second vice president. Well, you know, the Federation keeps getting more interesting, right? So Chuck Walhoff came back to Des Moines that winter. Dr. Durgan talked me into working a year. I hadn't had adequate training. I hadn't had 2 months of summer Spanish training, and it really wasn't adequate. He talked me into taking a year and working at the Commission for the Blind, and that's really when I got my orientation and mobility training and confidence training. And so Chuck Walhoff came back as a member of the Student Division Board, and Dr. Durgan called me into his office. He was the director of the commission, and he said, you know, I haven't been able to get this fellow from Idaho to warm up to me. Why don't you take him on as a project? Well, you know, I thought I did that project okay. We were married in 1968 in fall, and that was a good thing. At least I thought it was. Now, after I moved to Idaho, there was an editorial in the newspaper, The Statesman, and it was sent in by a blind woman. It was saying that handicapped people should be permitted to be sterilized. She wasn't saying it should be required, but it should be permitted. And it was an editorial in the newspaper. And I didn't agree with it, but it wasn't something I was going to get excited about until the next editorial appeared, and that came from a man named Heidenreich, who was my reader. And he said, I agree, handicapped people should be sterilized. And the reason I think so is because I know a young woman who's pregnant, and I asked her if she wasn't worried that her child would be blind, and she said she didn't care. Now, that was my reader, and that's not quite what I said. What I said was, if my child isn't perfect, and that can happen, if there's anything wrong, the thing I know how to cope with best is blindness. And so I could help a blind child better than if he had something else, some other kind of disability. But that's how the guy remembered it, and that's what he said in the newspaper. Well, the president of the chapter at that time brought that letter to a chapter meeting and said, we have to answer it. He was furious. Of course, by the time we saw it in the newspaper, I had a little baby sitting on the table in an infancy, and she was a doll. I mean, you can ask anybody, my daughter at 2 months old was a doll. And I dressed her all up in fancy, she had a fancy ruffly blue dress and so forth. But we did write a letter to the newspaper because what he said was, number one, it was wrong, but number two, it was scary. Because if somebody felt that blind people shouldn't have children because they might be blind, this was something that we could not tolerate. And I did know something about blindness, but he didn't understand it. And of course, he thought blindness was such a tragedy, such a horrible thing, that no way should anybody be permitted to even have a chance of bringing another blind person into the world. Well, what's happening to me? I'm growing in the Federation. I love that man. His name was Bud Little. His wife was Grace. And they became my mentors. And I appreciated that support. You don't know how much. So I was on the student division board back when Chuck came to Idaho to visit. And we decided we were going to, somebody thought we should write a student handbook for blind college students. And some people were opposed to it, but I said, no, I've been to college in Washington, D.C., remember, and the Iowa people had the support of the Commission for the Blind in Iowa, which was pretty good support. So they said, we don't need a college handbook. I said, yes, we do. I was learning not to be shy. And they said, well, what would you put in it? And I said, I would put in it the use of rehab services. How do you get the best mileage from rehab? And remember, this was a long time ago. Rehab was kind of mangy in most states at the time. And we should put in use of library service. How do you get the best support for books and textbooks and so forth? We should put it into a chapter on techniques and a chapter on organized wine. Well, you can tell I had the skeleton for the handbook written. We wrote it, and then we had to print it and publish it. Well, I happened to be in Des Moines at the time, so it fell to me to get bids on the printing and work that all out. I'd never done that before, but it was good for me. We got it, we printed 500 copies, and the day we got delivery, we got an order from the Library of Congress for, guess what? 500 copies. So we did another printing. And we sold them. We sold them for $1 in print. But so after my husband died in 1972, and I moved back to Des Moines, Dr. Jernigan knew me well, and he was my mentor. And he said, yes, I can give you a job if you can be here by the end of June, which was a bit of a problem. My husband died in April. But we moved, and I was working then for the Commission for the Blind in Iowa. Well, before the National Convention in 1973, Dr. Jernigan called me into his office. Now, I've been back there 1 year. And I've been in the Federation less than a decade, and I never regarded myself as a leader. Chuck was the leader in Idaho because he was the first vice president, and Oldie DeLander was president, and he was her, as they say, fair-haired boy, but she had groomed him, just like she groomed Dana. Oldie DeLander was both the president of the NFB of Idaho, and she was a home teacher for health and welfare. There was no commission for the blind. But in 1967, Chuck Wallenhoff was one of the people who sat in the Senate gallery every day while the Senate debated that commission for the blind bill until it passed. So they were kind of heroes at that 67 convention. And they hired a federation director, and that story's a different story. I can't tell it all here. But in 1973, Dr. Jernigan said to me, we are going to make an NFB film. And you are going to see that we get the right things in it. And I thought, I can't do that. I know nothing about filmmaking. He said, we have hired, now this was a long time ago, we have hired a person to do the recording, audio recording. We've hired somebody to do the video. We've hired somebody to have a mixer to mix them together properly. That took 3 people in those days. And we've hired a director. You're going to make sure they do it right. And you have an assistant. Sharon Grossteven will assist you, and you can send her off to run errands or whatever you need to do. I said, I can't do that. Well, why not? Because I know nothing about filmmaking, and I just can't do it. He said, well, who would you suggest? I said, somebody else can do it better. Who would you suggest? And I gave him 2 names. And then he shocked me again. One of them, he said, is too busy. He just can't take the time. And I could accept that. The other one, he said, you would do a better job than that person. That person was considered a leader in the Federation. And for him to tell me I can do a better job, I had to go think about that. But I didn't want to argue indefinitely with Dr. Jernigan. You just didn't do that. So I said I'd try. And we got the raw material for a film, and I'd love to tell you the rest of the story, but I don't think I have enough time. So in the 1990s, I served as president of the NFB of Idaho. I skipped a little time, and I could fill it in, but I don't think I can. Anyway, in the 1990s, I was president of the NFB of Idaho, and for much of that time, I served on the national board. And I was sent by President Maurer, who's the president, to represent him at state conventions, just as John Porterfield is doing now for President Riccobono, except it was a generation ago. So one time I was going to Idaho, and I thought, the Colorado Center for the Blind had been started in 1986 or 7, and this was the 1990s, and I had worked in the Idaho Training Center and Iowa Training Center, and I was curious to know about these new NFB training centers, so I called Diana George, who was president in Colorado at the time, and I said, I'd like to come a day or 2 early and visit the center, and she said, oh, we'd love to have you. And so that was fine. And I made my reservations, and she called me back and she said, oh, I think I should tell you, we're going rock climbing the Thursday before convention, the center. Do you want to go? She said, do you have any desire to go? And I said, no, none. And she said, well, I just thought I should warn you. And I said, well, you know what, Diane? I have no desire to go, but I'll do it because that's how I'm going to visit with the students and so forth. It won't hurt me to go rock climbing. Well, I was right I was wrong about that. I had the sorest muscles that weekend in the whole world. But on the rock climbing wall, I had an interesting experience. The first time I climbed up, it wasn't too hard. It must have been an easy climb. And I climbed up to the top and came back. I learned to belay. Everybody's afraid of belaying. You put your feet flat, the soles against the wall, and you lean back. You sit on a harness that they show you how to use before you go up. You sit on that harness and lean back away from the wall to protect your body from banging into the wall. You use the soles of your feet to direct yourself so the belayer down on the ground, and you coordinate going down. You just walk down that wall with your feet. So that was fine. I thought that was the best part of it. But after lunch, we went to another part of the wall, and people were going up in there saying, this is a hard climb. And I thought, well, I won't have to do this because I'm just a beginner. But pretty soon they come over with the belay stuff and they say, okay, it's your turn. I said, really? You said it's a hard one, you'll do fine. Excuse me. And so I thought, okay, you know, I'm the representative of the president, I've gone up as well. I go up and I struggled because it really was a harder climb. They didn't have near as good handholds and footholds as on the first climb. But I got up about 2/3 of the way with a struggle, and then I ran into an overhang. And there was this big hunk of rock reaching way over my head, and I could not begin to reach the edge of the rock, which was way behind me. And I tried to get around it to the right, and I tried to get around it to the left, and there wasn't any hope. And finally, I screamed at the top of my lungs, because I'm way above this crowd. I said, I need some help. And here comes this guy, he must have been an instructor, like a rabbit. Click, 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 like this, well, just like anybody that can do it fast. I couldn't begin to tell you, an animal. But he gets up there and he said, now, raise your hand up above your shoulder on the right. There's a good handhold there. It's 1/8 of an inch. He said, you know, put your fingers flat above that and put your palm flat against, it's a good handhold. Luckily, I got the belay rope. Then he says, lift up your right foot. And he's got a place where I'm supposed to put it about a foot to the left of that hand. Way above my shoulder. I'm supposed to get it up there. And so I've got one handhold and one handed foothold on the left that I've got to use. I've got a 3-point and I've got to get my foot up there. Well, I did. I don't think I could do that now. But this was 25 years ago, or maybe 30. Anyway, I get my foot up there and he says, now lift your weight and you can lift your other weight. And he says, now you've got to move over to the right because you've got to get that cable, the belay cable over to the right of this overhang. Well, I said, there's nothing. Yeah, you can move your body over to the right with these wonderful handhold and foothold. And I did. And I could tell you, it was scary and it was hard work. But when I got to the top of this wall, what do you suppose happened? That's right, there were cheers from the bottom and clapping and cheers from the bottom of that wall. Those students knew what I'd been through. There must have been somebody else on that wall at the same time, but I didn't hear anything from them. Anyway, so then I get to belay all the way down, which was great. I got to relax and belay down. And what happened when I got to the bottom?
Cheers. Or cheers.
There were hugs at the bottom. So there were cheers at the top and hugs at the bottom. And you know, not too long later, I went off to the state of Indiana where we had to do some reorganizing, and they had a lot of squabbling going on in that state at that time. And so afterwards, the organizing team were each asked to make a speech. And so I told them that story. And I said, you know, that's how we treat each other. When somebody has to do something hard, there are cheers at the top and hugs at the bottom. And they just went wild. And the leadership, and that came up later and said, that's what we needed to hear. And so Diane George said, you know, you didn't have to do that. We could have arranged something else. I said, but Diane, you gave me at least one good speech. We ever have a lot of fun in the Federation. And I can't tell you all the stories. In the 20th century, I joined the Lions Club. Why do you suppose I joined the Lions Club? A district governor, that's the highest state position, came and said, we want you to support our White Cane campaign. And they had this little lapel pin with a red bottom and a curved top. And they had this horrible literature that told how horrible it was if you should lose life. So this is a site first campaign, and they want us to support us in the Federation. And I thought, okay, this isn't going to work. So I made an appointment with the district governor, who was in Twin Falls, and I took somebody with me, and we talked for a couple of hours. And I said, I have some misgivings. We aren't going to fight you on this. We're not going to attack you and say it's bad, because it's a good thing to support sight restoration, and they call it sight first. But I said, we're not gonna get out and join you in the campaign because your literature represents blindness differently than we want it to be represented. I said, you know, the Lions really help work on blindness in two different ways. You do blindness prevention, and that's a good thing to do. But you also give grants to blind people to help them, and that's different from prevention. Helping blind people is different from prevention. And we talked about it for a long time, and at the end of that discussion, the district governor, Don Ray, said, I'm so glad you came. He said, it never once occurred to me that preventing blindness and helping blind people were two different things. I had an opportunity as the NFB president to educate a whole organization. I joined the club after that, and I met a lot of fun people. I took a cruise through the Panama Canal with a lion that I was in my club, and I went one time to Puerto Rico, and they were having a training thing for the lions there, and I met people from Emmett right out in the water on the beach, right by the hotel. So I had lots of fun experiences as a lion. Now, I always look ahead and look for new things to do. Silver Bells was a lot of fun, and I'd love to tell you about it, but they're gonna tell you about that. You don't need me to do that. YouTube, why do I do YouTube? Well, we had a senior in high school, I guess she was, named Sierra, and she said, you need a YouTube channel. And I said, okay, can you put it up? She said, yes. So she did. So it was my first job was to gather a bunch of people to kind of tell what is the Federation. We got about, 8 or 10 people, and we did a video to describe what is the Federation. And I think it was okay. We didn't know anything about what we were doing. We were experimenting. But then Sierra moved out of state. And so we needed to have people make videos. We got this channel, and there's nothing wrong with this channel, except we didn't have enough information about it until later on. Kevin figured it out, new passwords and so forth. And so we talked for a long time, and we put up, a dozen maybe videos, but it wasn't doing much. We got, I think probably the highest we got was 300 views, and some of them didn't do that well. But we had it there, the raw potential was there. And so at some point I thought, okay, I can afford to pay for some help. So I'm not unlimited help. And the NFB authorized $1,000 at one point, which we spent on about 3 videos. So you couldn't pay professionals to film very many videos, or we were going to have very many up. So we started doing them in a more amateur way. Kevin posted them, and I arranged to get many of them taken, but some other people did a few. And we now have, does anybody know how many videos we have up?
A ton.
I do.
504. Okay, Kevin, I should have let you say it.
No, you're good.
Does anybody know how many viewers we have?
It's kind of varied, hasn't it?
What?
How many subscribers, you mean?
Subscribers, yeah. How many, Kevin?
You've had a lot.
600 and
Over
plus.
600.
Yeah, over 600.
Yeah, over
now.
600. So we're growing, we could have income from this if we had enough viewers. You've got to have 1,000 viewers, and you've got to have some other things done. The best thing we could do is get a celebrity to help us advertise and promote it. But we've got to get in touch with a celebrity that will take our direction about blindness. Well, guess what? Diamond Garcia said to me, I've got a TikTok channel, and I've got 22,000 viewers. I said, would you look through our stuff and find a couple that you can share? It may not be a miracle, but it's a wonderful thing to do. I said, yes. There are all kinds of things you can do. And so, well, he's certainly more of a celebrity than I am on TikTok. Now his is a techie channel. You can't tell what will happen, but It's gotta be good, whatever it is. And then we've got silver bells. Have I learned anything at silver bells? You bet I did. But I'll let them tell you about it. Another project I've been working on this year is sponsors for the bike ride. I've chaired the bike ride for several years, and, other people have taken on. They've done a good job. But we needed people to work on sponsors, and Joe twisted my arm, and I said, yeah, I'll try. And so, one of the things I've learned is you can do some things by phone, you can do some things in person, but you've got to work online to get sponsors now. We discovered something called Versate or Versite, I don't know what it is. And in order to talk to Wells Fargo Bank and Simplot, you've got to go through that Versite process. So we did. Now, I don't think we'll have results immediately, but hopefully by next year. I contacted Clearwater Analysis, we contacted KeyBank, we contacted D.L. Evans Bank. In other words, we're going for new sponsors, and we won't get them all, we're gonna get some. Now, I need help, we need help. All of you guys looking for new jobs, these are things you can help with, and it is fun, and it is rewarding. So, this is an opportunity to grow, and whatever you learn in the Federation, you apply throughout your life. I don't think I ever would have been a board member in my church if I hadn't had the experience I had with nonprofit and the Federation. And I could go on and on. So, the Federation gives you so many things. It gives you colleagues, it gives you love, it gives you knowledge, it gives you experience, it gives you confidence. So take advantage of all this stuff that's out there. I'm gonna do it time yet. Okay. Well, the last thing I have written down here, you can guess what it is. Funding for the National Convention. So, there are lots of ways, people have been saying this, there are lots of ways. The Journeyman Fund helps, chapters can help, the NFB can help. But we had a mom in Mountain Home, Joanne Grimmett, one time, went out and solicited businesses. She said, I need to take my daughter to the convention of the National Federation. I have no idea where it was that year. And she raised enough money, she didn't need any from the state. So, there are lots of ways to raise funds, but you have to want to go. And of course, after you've been there once, you probably want to go back. But there are lots of ways to work on it. Take ownership in your own opportunities, and we'll tell you who won the contest tonight.
Let's have a door prize for the person learning, continuing to learn in the Federation. Great story.
Let's do it. Let's do a door prize, full name. We're gonna do, we have a handmade bag, and we're gonna give it with socks and $20. Who made the bag, bud? It says right there. Somebody made it. There's Ramona. Roman, you're Roman. Roman. She said Roman instead of Ramona. Last name is James.
Our next presentation on Silver Bells, let's welcome Marcy for February.
Yeah.
All right, I didn't bring my chair with me, so everyone stand up.
Is Olin here?
Stand up. Is Olin here?
Stand up.
She went to the bathroom, I think.
She went to the bathroom, I think.
Hey,
Someone do it in the
keep your
garage.
picture when I walk out.
Out. We'll see you later.
Okay, all right. So, everyone take a nice deep breath in, bring your arms out to the side and up and reach for the sky. Wiggle your fingers. You can twist your body from side to side. Now interlace your fingers above your head and come up onto your toes. And then on an exhale, you can lower your heels and twist your body to the right. Inhale back to center, come up onto your toes if that feels good for you. And then exhale, lower your heels and twist to the left. Inhale back to center, release your arms forward and down, shake out your arms. And we're gonna do it again. Inhale, bring your arms out to the side and up, reach for the sky, stretch, stretch, stretch. Interlace your fingers above your head, come up onto your toes. And exhale, let's twist to the right. Inhale back to center, come up onto your toes. Exhale, lower your heels, as I lose my balance. Twist to the left. Inhale back to center. Stretch, stretch, stretch your fingers up high. Exhale, we're gonna lean to the right. Inhale to the center, and let's exhale to the left. Inhale to center, exhale, lower your arms forward and down. All right, let's do some marching in place. Move your arms, walk in place, get those feet moving. Wake yourselves up, stop your sleeping. Wake up, wake up. Very good. All right, pause. Deep breath in, arms out and up. Stretch, stretch, stretch. Exhale, bring your hands together, go into your heart. Thank you.
All right. All right.
Next we have Silver Bells.
Silver
Bells. We have Natalie and we have Kristen and I hope we have David. David's here. Do we have Christy? Christy said she'd come, but I didn't hear back, so I don't know what happened. But at least we've got 3 students, and we've certainly got a bunch of teachers here. We want to hear from our teachers. But we may not have time. So let's have the students come up and tell everybody here who wasn't there why Silver Bells, a little bit of history. Maybe I should give that history because Shane always gives it. He's not here. But Silver Bells came out of last year's convention. Our group came up, a group of people losing vision and people who said, we need a place to get some training. It'll be introductory training for sure. We can't have a long-term thing, but it will get us started. And there's just not enough training out there for people that are either considered independent living or seniors. There just isn't. And I don't fault anyone for that except possibly the feds who don't give us enough money. But we better be careful what we say because we may be wishing we had the money we have. So anyway, so that's how this came about. And we got a committee going and we got some funding so that we could do it. And we worked hard to put it together. And on February 19th through the 22nd. 16th through the 19th. I know it was somewhere around there. I know it was over President's Day, which was a mistake we made. But anyway, we all survived that. We came to the Holiday Inn and we had Silver Bells. So we have David and Kristen and Natalie. So you guys can decide who wants to talk first. Kristen, do you have to leave? I mean, okay, Kristen, you better go first.
Where is everybody? Okay, talk to them about Silver Bells.
It's hard to believe that it was a year ago that we sat up here and proposed the idea of Silver Bells, and due to some dedicated and generous people, it actually happened. It was wonderful. We showed up, there were about 12 of us, and beforehand we ask, or we let them know what our specific needs were, like what we needed to focus on. For example, I needed more help with technology. Others were interested in European travel or daily living and Braille. And originally, I signed up for marketing travel and technology assistance and said, I'm not interested in Braille. But I was told, well, you sit in the class anyway because there is nowhere else for you to go. And so I sat in the class with Natalie, and it was so much fun that we were given an option to choose one more class to spend time on, and I chose Braille because it was just so interesting and so much easier to learn where the class size was so small. There were only 2 of us in the class, Natalie and I, with Dana, and because of the individualized attention, we were able to learn, I feel, so quickly. And it was wonderful. And for daily living, it was very scary to be cooking with a hot surface blindfolded. But each person had a teacher with them, assisting, helping, giving tools to not burn yourself. And so that made it so much more comfortable for me, because I was very scared of the hot surface and not being able to see it. But you know, they're so skilled in teaching and training. It was wonderful. And then with cane travel, it was very exciting to learn to utilize my other senses to kind of tell me what was going on around me, so that I didn't need to use my sight to do that. It's a skill that is learned. Obviously, most of you know that, but it's one I had not practiced before. So it was very interesting to listen to cars far away or closer, or to feel the cold air and the warm air on my skin, to know that I was either indoors or outdoors or getting close to a window door. Anyway, those were some of the things I learned. And I think one of the biggest takeaways was becoming connected with other people that were in the same position, that were new to vision loss. It was very touching to see how helpful it was to other people who didn't know anyone else who had experienced vision loss, and were just needing some more individualized attention. I feel like we made connections, and like Jen said, community that we'll probably not forget soon. And you know, if it is ever possible, it'd be nice to have all of us there again next year. But anyway, I hope that in the future we're able to do that again for others who are new to vision loss or experiencing vision loss, and just need a little individualized attention for 3 or 4 days. I'm just so appreciative of the teachers that took their time and people that donated their time and resources to that program. Thank you so much.
I would like to say, and I'm going to ask this of everyone, to think about what have you taken with you and been able to use since you came home. Do you have anything, Kristen, that's come to mind that you're using or?
Well, I do plan.
You know, with the microphone.
Yep. Well, I'm not going to commit to the other person just yet, but I have spoken with a fellow classmate to have weekly Braille lessons together, because it is so much more fun to learn with someone else. Really, if I have to do it on my own, I just won't. But if you have someone that you have to answer to and to hold you accountable, it's just so much easier and more fun. So that's what I am planning on doing.
Thank you. Yeah, Braille class was great. I enjoyed all my students. I had everybody there were a lot of different people at different levels with different educational situations, and I love to teach, and I had a blast. Anyway,
Who wants to be next?
is it David or Natalie?
Either one, David, when you wanna go?
I've got the talking stick, so I guess I'll do it.
What's the talking stick?
You go. Oh, you get the mic, okay, go for it. Go ahead, David.
You said?
They're just trying to see how the microphone.
I just didn't know it was on.
You should also hold it closer to your mouth.
It's not.
Chasing. My name is David Gary, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the Silicon Valley program.
You have to kiss it.
Okay, is that a little?
There
bit?
you go.
Okay,
Right on it.
Chasing it. David Berry, I was fortunate enough to be gifted the chance to go to the Silicon Valley program. I've known Braille in the past. I hadn't touched it in about 35 years. So it was great for me to go back and touch the Braille again. The Cade steels I haven't utilized in because since I had reached kind of the gray mile in my life, I'm just kind of slowing down and not getting on as much as I used to. The ADL, the cooking skills and stuff, that was phenomenal. I always loved to cook, and it was really nice to touch that. And Marcy and Cindy did such a fantastic job at the ADL because just the bare bones facilities they had to be able to pull off what they did was phenomenal. I was absolutely blown away, just blown away. And then Cindy Streeter, she was, Mrs. Streeter, how's that? She was teaching
Get right in the mic.
the travel skills for us. So for me and Natalie, I was in Natalie's class for that. And that was great. That was great. Just for me, being there was phenomenal. The energy was unbelievable. Everybody was there. They were there to learn. They really paid attention to what they were doing. They had a true sense of community, getting along with everybody. But it was just an experience that you just have to experience. It was such a small group, and everybody, it was like being with a little family, almost. And with that, I've been thinking that within and the talk that Ramona said, I've got a little short story I want to share with them before I pass it on. Life is I've got a short story about life in 5 short chapters. Chapter 1, I walk down the street. It's a great day. Come back home. Chapter 2, I walk down the street. There's a big hole in the street. I fall in. Oh, God, it takes me forever to get out. Day 3, I walk down the street. There's a hole in the street. I know it's there. Oh, jeez, I fall in again. It takes forever to get back out. Day 4, chapter 4. I walk down the street. There's a big hole. I walk around it. Day 5. I walk down a different street. That's a lesson to be told always. There's nothing that can hold us back. We just have to decide to walk down a different street. So with that, I'm all right. Thank you.
Well, and one of the things David did as my star student when I was teaching them about the slate stylus, which I hadn't really planned to do, but this group was so smart, so quick. I had time to do it. Well, I got my slate out. I always carry a slate. And then it came with the stylus, and I dug around my purse. Oh, I had a question in one of my classes we had for our spouses of our people or significant others. And somebody asked me if I had a system for organizing my purse. I just laughed and said, no, my sister called the purse the oblivion bin. So anyway, I was digging around trying to find my stylus where I didn't have one. I apparently used it for something else. So I did what I know you can do, and I can kind of do it. I pulled out a pen. And I said, okay, we're gonna use this pen to do the letters. And I'll tell you what, David was great. He did perfect, wonderful letters and words with the pen and the slate. So he was the star of people.
Good job, David.
Okay, next, and I guess last, except for our teachers or people who have questions, and we may just leave it, put it up for questions. Natalie, our wonderful auctioneer, and she's done all kinds of fun things. So Natalie. Woo!
So I'm just gonna give you guys a rundown of my experience. So I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a visual. Okay, so my alarm went off at 6:45. Did my thing, went down, and was given a breakfast buffet of wonderful food. Like, I can't tell you guys how well they treated us. I feel like I was like MVP, VIP, I don't know, but it was incredible. And after that, I had King Travel. And Sandy was my King Travel instructor. And let me tell you guys, the instructors that they had are like top notch. For our state, we have the best of the best there. And so I was so excited to learn from her. And some of the things that I needed to learn through King Travel were to just polish my skills. So when she asked me, what are some of the things you'd like to learn? I chose to do the stairs, and we went and learned the elevator all by ourselves. And so we did that, and then on the second day, she took us around the outside of the hotel. And it's so funny because it was David and I, we were trucking along, we were doing so good, and all of a sudden David says, hey, I'm gonna go explore. I'm like, right on, David. I was like, I'm gonna go take off and see what I can do. So there's Sandy, between both of us, and I'm trucking along. I'm like, wow, I'm doing so good. So what do? I want to push harder, right? So off I go, and next thing I know, boing, this bush is in the middle of the sidewalk. And my cane hadn't quite caught it enough that I ran directly into it, and it bumped me right off the sidewalk. Luckily, I landed on my feet. It was like a perfect sit, right? And it just made me giggle because, you know, these are the obstacles that come across.
You got it, girl.
Come on, into it.
Oh, I know. This was just such an incredible experience, you guys. Okay, so, some people may not know this, but the reason I really wanted to do Zero Trails is because my wife and I are actually taking care of our parents. And we aren't able to, I can't leave for 11 months. And anyways, these skills were enough to help me help my parents and myself, of course. But for instance, we have to do like financial stuff or pay, bill payment stuff for them. So before taking this technology class, I was not able to get into help them with their bill pay because I didn't understand how to get around the app. And so after this technology, I learned my voiceover. Dude, I am flying through apps like you would not believe. It is rad. And, okay. So then I had they call it ADL, but home ec, right? And I love to cook, but, around heat, I was nervous. I needed some tips on how to not burn myself or cut my fingers off. So, sure enough, I had Cindy and Marcy helping, and they were just fantastic. They're so patient, and I made French toast. And I love French toast. I'm so excited to keep making that, and I've even started cooking more because my wife. Woo! Yes. And then Braille. Come on, guys. Braille is not exciting. So it was so fun to have Kristen just be as excited as I was. And man, when we got on a roll, we were on a roll. And not only did we learn Braille, we got to learn a Braille writer, and we got to use this lady stylus, and we were just, I was like, we should send secret codes back and forth now. So yeah, we're gonna start a Braille class.
That's great.
And I just wanted to thank Tina and Kristen and anybody else who was at that, because not only was I motivated by our instructors, but I was so motivated by my peers. They're incredible human beings, just like everyone in this room. And if you have the opportunity to do this and to polish your skills, I highly recommend it. And I highly just want to thank all of you, and to the donor who was so kind to donate this money. You have not only changed my life, you changed my wife's and my parents. You impacted more than just me, but my entire family. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
That's right. Maybe we should come up with memes. If they do leadership, we should do more.
Door prize.
Well done.
Are there any questions?
No question. You have 2 more.
Okay, do we,
Do we have any questions? We have about 3 minutes. Questions or comments from the teachers perhaps?
You know what? I had the greatest time, and I loved working with Marcy, and I hope we can do it again soon. I had a good time.
Okay, Cindy said, not on the mic, but I understand, we don't have,
Where is this quote coming from now?
She said she had a wonderful time working with Marcy and hopes to do it again real soon.
Amy Portico with a question. I'm just wondering, those of you that did the silver belt, and it sounds absolutely incredible. I really admire you guys for doing the silver belts. It's one of the best things that we do in the NFB. And I was just wondering if you guys have opportunities, or have you been signed up to get additional training now that you've done this big shot in the arm?
Oh, you're talking to the silver belt.
Seniors, yeah. Have you guys learned how, or did you learn how you can continue to get more training? Like, I know not everyone can go away, like Natalie was saying, but do you know what your options are to get additional training now that you've got your big jump in the water?
Natalie does, yes.
Okay.
And all of them were receiving home instruction prior.
They were, okay.
East Idaho is very problematic in some of the home resources that are available there.
Incredible program.
The state agency, so.
A lot of these students were referred by their home teachers.
Yes.
Yes.
Marcy wants to say something.
Okay.
As soon as Dana joined one of our meetings at ICBVI and was telling us about it, the first thought in my head is, I want to help. That sounds like so much fun. So I was so honored that we got to come help with that. I had a lot of fun with it. I loved working with Cindy. I loved working with all the students. And yes, I hope you get to do it again next year. It was just awesome.
Natalie volunteers to help people forward. And
Good.
Awesome.
All right.
Great.
All right, well, let's have a door prize for the silver belt students and teachers.
Okay.
Door.
A bag
Uh-huh.
with some sauce and put it on
Bag of what?
A bag with what?
and then put it on those kind of sauce.
Oh, socks and $20. Socks and $20.
You can win some songs.
No, I have enough socks already.
Amy Peter Finn.
I think she's here.
David
Mary.
David
He's clear as a back.
They'll bring it to you.
Madam President Ford?
Yes.
Yes. I just wanted to say something quickly. I am not in a position to go out and do a lot of activities in teaching like I used to. But something I can do, and I'm saying now that I will do, if you guys, you students, want connections in Braille, all you have to do is contact me. I would write to you. I would tell you where errors are. If you write back to me, I will. I taught Braille for goodness how many years, you know, and I'd be glad to. It's easy for me, and I love teaching Braille.
Our next
That's awesome, Susan.
topic came from my discussion with Donald Porterfield, and I'm wondering if we would have any time within this discussion, normally be not part of the discussion, but very briefly to hear from our chairman for the baskets for tonight before we start.
I'm here at your leisure, so, feel free.
Okay, well, I don't want to short our discussion about navigating difficult times. But we have talked about it some. Deanne, do you want to come and give us a little bit of a rundown on the baskets so people are incentivized to buy more tickets and spend more money?
Spend more money,
And
Kim.
we still have Utah truffles and cordials. You guys might want to buy some to take home tomorrow.
Oh, you got truffles too?
I didn't know she had truffles.
I didn't know she had truffles.
Do we still have cards for the 50-50 prize?
Well, tonight after, maybe tonight after.
That I don't know, Sandy.
We still have some of the 50-50 raffle cards too, if you are interested.
Sandy is interested. Now, should be Sandy was asking.
So like I said earlier, there is, we have a lot of baskets this year. And all of this goes to the Silver Bells and the Bell program and to help with our conventions and many more things. So everybody needs to buy up tickets. I think I still have tickets. Do you still have tickets, Sammy?
Yes. I have tickets.
I still have.
There's many tickets still out there to buy. We have a movie night basket, a dog themed basket, a chocolate themed basket. I'm trying to think of them in order off the top of my head. So there's a foot spa. There's one from Culver's. It's a custard place and an essential oil basket.
Dog
There's a
treats.
Dillard's basket, right guys? You're deciding not to auction off the Dillard's basket. Still over there. Am I missing any? There's a Java Juice.
Salon.
A spa.
Ambitions.
Oh, there's a foot spa. There's the Love at First Bite. That's the one.
Chocolate one, yeah.
So buy your tickets. They're Braille, there's large print, and there's pen friend over there. If you need to learn how to use the pen friend, I can definitely help you.
What, pen
Or we can just talk you through it if you want. So everybody buy some tickets and put them in the
Pen
box
friend.
next to the baskets on the raffle table, which is I'm
Oh,
facing
okay.
you, it'd be on your left-hand side of the wall.
I'm not heard.
There's a big table with all the baskets.
What's the name of it again?
Pen friend. Are you hearing that for the first time?
Okay, interesting.
Renegade, if you don't have cash, but you want to
These
buy
little
raffle
labels.
tickets,
Yeah.
I can take a payment.
Yeah, it's like a little label that records.
You can program what it's for or whatever.
Yeah, no excuses.
How much do they run?
All right,
I don't have a piano, no. It's just sitting right here.
have some discussion. I don't know exactly, so I'm not
See, similar
for sure. Just want to come up and talk to you a bit.
All right.
We'll let you both handle it.
Who's that?
Huh? 155. I've seen similar things like that. What is another one they call me?
Greetings once again. So this section is, we're going to discuss the times that we're in, and these
Oh, you guys
are,
don't, I have to go teacher again? No.
you know, these can be some very troubling times for us, and what is key is how we respond, how we react. One of the things that I wanted to lead off with is making sure that everybody knows that the National Federation of the Blind is an apolitical group. We work with
No, it's not.
both major political parties, we work with independents that have been in the Senate. We work with individuals, whether they're elected officials or they're appointed or hired policymakers. We work with individuals that support our needs, our causes, and we do our best to educate individuals who don't see it from our perspective so that they understand the organized blind movement a little bit better.
Can I define a little bit? So when we're talking about political, apolitical, there's two thoughts, and two ways of looking at political, right? There's the politics we see in the news every day, and the way that people frame what's going on in our world versus the actual inner workings of what's happening and what we need, how we need to continue to have a voice. So when we say we're not, we're like political, we're not gonna say that we're a Republican organization, or we're neither. In fact, many of our strongest advocates have been Republicans, and we've had Republican-controlled House or Senate for many, many years, and we've had great relationships and continue to and are excited about that. But what happens in the conversations we have with our elected officials and the way that we are able to work towards developing policy is built through relationships. And that's incredibly different than what we see like rhetoric in our news and our newspaper and on social media and the way that we interpret it. So I think the first thing to kind of say as we're talking through this conversation is we all have really strong opinions about what we believe, and some of that is tied to rhetoric, right? But our conversation today is how do we, in the National Federation of the Blind, work within the systems that we have and the leaders that we've elected to make sure that our rights and our opportunities remain, and continue to grow. And so it's easy to kind of us to kind of. I just want to really caution that. And then what I often say all the time when we're having this conversation about, really about everything, you hear me always say, let's break it down. And so I think that's what we need to do today is to break some of it down so we understand, we may have feelings about one side of things or another, but honestly, can we get to the middle? Can we get to the conversation that's really supporting our rights? And I don't think there's a single person that I can think of that says my goal in life is to make sure blind people lose all their rights. No one's thinking that. So how do we get from these big conversations, which we're a small population, right? how do we get to where these large conversations where we are lumped into things that some people might call, entitlements and benefits and things like that, to saying, hey, this is what we're actually talking about. Because our conversation often gets very lost in the big conversations that we hear and we think about.
And when we look at the environment that we're in today, I think we have to look backwards in time at some of the key pieces of legislation that we're trying to protect today. And it's easy to say that we're under attack from one side or the other, but when you look at the Americans with Disabilities Act or the Rehabilitation Act or IDEA, all three of those critical pieces of legislation were passed under Republican presidencies. And a lot of people don't understand and don't know that. So when Amy says that a lot of the support we've had, a lot of the major support we've had in the past has come from Republicans, it's because of the relationships that we build with Republicans, the relationships that we build with Democrats and Independents. Now, this is entitled a discussion, so
Can we, let's take the first issue and then we can start breaking it down. Is that okay?
well, yes, but
Okay.
this is a discussion, so it's not all about what I have to say or what Amy has to say. It's also about what you have to say and answer some of the questions that you may have.
So we're starting off with the first piece that's really critical, and that has to do with Texas versus Kennedy, right? And that really has to do with Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act deals with the fact that any federally funded agency or agencies that receive federal dollars through contracts must provide accommodations to people with disabilities to receive their services. And the two biggest areas that this has to do with is kids in school who don't have an IEP, if they're getting accommodations, and kids in college who are receiving their accommodations in college. Those are two really big ones, but there's many other things that cover that. So just to clarify the accommodations that's different from IDEA, right? So if you are in school, and this is high school, elementary, pre-K through high school, and you do not have an IEP, then you're covered under 504. So the difference between having an IEP and just getting an accommodation is that the individualized education plan, the IEP, that is covering like your academic goals, the goals that you have to make sure that you're performing as close to grade level or above, you're and you get access to the curriculum, right? Now, getting accommodations are things like maybe sitting closer to the front of the classroom or having more time on tests. So there are many people with disabilities, kids with disabilities, even a lot of people who are blind with disabilities that maybe they've got a lot of usable vision and they unfortunately just didn't get the right advocacy, didn't get an IEP. They're just getting really general accommodations, not specific goals that are related to their education. So when gender dysphoria was added to be a disability through executive order, that then got included for all the kids that are receiving accommodations under 504. The issue that was brought forward is that they don't believe, so they the goal is to really remove all those pieces that are supporting folks, who are in that group. And wherever you stand on that side of it, we analyze this and we decide how can we protect our rights as blind people, we've got to separate it and break it down. So people with, who are considered to have gender dysphoria are considered to be covered under 504. The goal of these 17 states is to, first of all, eliminate that. So, because children who are transgender in school is a really big, higher level political issue that we're reading about in the news every day, right? That's why I'm saying breaking it down. So that is a big issue that they're talking about, where they really are trying to find all the ways that they can to deal with that issue. So they're saying that 504 in itself is unconstitutional. And they're saying that it's unconstitutional because it does not say anywhere in the Constitution that Congress can deal with things like of this nature, that they like break it down what Congress can deal with. So this is a really, it's much deeper than just what they're talking about. If, for example, if they won and said it was unconstitutional, how many other things that Congress has done would it be considered to be unconstitutional with that school of thought? And if 504 was considered to be unconstitutional, what does that mean to the Americans with Disabilities Act, who are following under the same premise? And so that connects to every single one of the rights that we live by to have equal opportunity. So we're looking at this whole thing about, the reasons and what's happening. The states who were, Texas and the other states who are suing are saying, we're not really talking about the rights of people with disabilities. We're not really concerned about that. We're going to change that. We're going to just talk about the gender dysphoria. They've said that to us, but they continue to double down in court, and they have not backed off the unconstitutionality. So breaking it down shows, wherever you stand on that political spectrum about what's going on, thinking about how this can impact us is really critical. And the way that we argue it and discuss it is really critical, because no one, again, is saying, my whole goal in life is to make sure blind people have no accommodations in school and can't ever learn again. No one wants that. So we have to discuss it from a point of view that explains what we're talking about. So we can take questions and discussion from there.
Well, I do have some comment and question, Amy, and I appreciate that.
Can you call your name Kevin?
Huh?
Same rules as yesterday.
Call your name
Kevin.
so we can keep this up. I know who you are, but it's going to be a slippery.
That's all right. Most people know me. No, I appreciate that, because that's a much better really explanation, I think, than it was provided earlier on the cause and trigger of this. My understanding was that it's not, I guess.
Yes, it's
Well,
on
you do
there.
have
Put
to
it up
eat,
real
don't
quick
you?
to you, folks.
That the remedy was, or the concern was, not in eliminating 504, but the challenge was on having to present guidelines to function under 504, that the requirement of businesses and organizations to provide guidelines. Is that not correct?
No, they're saying that the 504 is unconstitutional, and Congress had no right, or didn't have the authority to create that law.
Okay, because one of the review articles I saw on that was regarding the guidelines, so it's
that's what they're
unconstitutional to command
saying.
those.
That is what you're saying. You're right. There are articles but they still haven't changed their plea. They still double down on what we're talking in court. They have not changed their approach in court. So until they do that, that's the proof in the pudding, right? So if maybe that is all people want, and maybe they're gonna go ahead and do that at some point, but we haven't seen that. We're seeing a lot of people saying, don't worry about this. We're not trying to attack, your rights. We understand. But if that's the case, why haven't they changed the plea yet?
Part of their argument in their initial pleading was saying that Congress imposed some specific spending requirements on the states to provide these accommodations. So it goes beyond just the gender dysphoria that is truly their target, according to what they tell people like Eve Hill and as a federation, we are working on how do we go about addressing this issue. President Rick Bono has written letters to the attorney generals of all 17 states, stating our position, as well as the position of the disability community at large, because this is an incredible concern to the disability community and to the blind community. So Earlier, somebody asked me about the 17 states. You guys want to know who they are?
Yeah.
So it's Alaska, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, Utah, and West Virginia.
Doesn't surprise me.
And, well, some of those states have strong affiliates in them too.
Sure, real strong. So the thing is about this is that, so do we think that in the end we'll find a way to protect? I certainly believe that we will, but you gotta still work the system, play that game, like do the political, advocacy all the way to the end. And until we see those promises clearly delivered in actions, we have to continue our advocacy on that because too much is at stake.
We have to expand our advocacy. I have friends or family members or even acquaintances that I went to law school with in several of those states, and it's upon us to reach out to friends, family, whomever that we know in those states and explain this issue and ask that they write those state attorney generals, that they write and ask their senators or their congressmen to inform them about how this will affect
Biden's order is
our
abuse.
community.
So Natalie called her name, so she can. So she can.
Let me find their dishes. Natalie Hill or Natalie? Or, sorry, we have two.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, so I just wanted to make a tiny little comment to just along this lines, like she said, this is very important because, let's look in history, when they go after one, they're gonna go after another, so, or I don't know.
Angie Bradley. I was a student who received extra time on tests, not for my blindness at the time, but for my high-level autism. And I want to do a shout out to all the students here who have the experiences of having their IEPs, having those services being provided. Those are going to be the people that you're really going to impact the people who are doing the voting if you get out there and start talking to our representatives and then talking to your family and friends who already know what kind of impact that's done for your life.
Call your name, please.
Call your name.
I'm Katie Rose, Emily's mom. So I have a question in regards to a lot of this, the lawsuits coming because of the gender dysphoria.
Can you speak a little bit more directly?
Yeah, you really gotta get close and personal with it.
Because of the gender dysphoria inclusion, and I'm just wondering, what is exactly the NFB's position, and are the states at all interested in entertaining, like taking that terminology out or separating it into a separate bill, or is it, and the ones that are bringing the suit? I mean, what have been the discussion around that? Has there been any discussion around that? Just like.
And that's what triggered it for sure.
Those words, and putting that in a separate lawsuit, or is that not even being entertained, or is it just going straight for the county,
So first, I think we need to explain or just inform you that the gender dysphoria was not added by legislation. The Rehabilitation Act, Section 504, is a legislative, vehicle, and there are specific rules and regulations that have been promulgated to enact that rule. The gender dysphoria was added very recently. And
Through executive order.
As an
And
executive
our-
order by Biden.
our position is that Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act is constitutional. If their true target is gender dysphoria, then that's what they need to be attacking, not the constitutionality of Section 504. Because Section 504, as Amy said, if you render Section 504 unconstitutional, it creates a landslide opportunity to eliminate all similar types of legislation. And once again, do you truly want to eliminate the services covered under the Rehabilitation Act, whether it's Section 501, 503, 504? Do you want to eliminate the Americans with Disabilities Act or IDA? Because if this is ruled unconstitutional, every one of those become prime targets.
So thank you for answering that. Oh, sorry.
Did you have a follow-up?
I just had a quick follow-up question. I guess from a legal standpoint, do we know what other options there are? Are they doing this just to target the 504, or are they feeling like this is the only legal option they have to take out that that terminology, or is it? I guess I'm just trying to understand what legal arguments that we can make to address this with, and can we even address this, obviously, but I'm just wondering what legal grounds can we have? Are they doing it because they think that's the only way that they can, get that gender dysphoria language out, since it was put in by an executive order?
That's a good question.
That would actually be a better question to ask of somebody like an Eve Hill. But what I can tell you in terms of, can the problem be remedied without going to the courts? I mean, I believe it can be. Because the gender dysphoria was not, like I said, not added via legislation.
But it does not have to be attacking the constitutionality of 504. They can change that pleading to talk specifically about that categorization of disability. They do not need to attack the constitutionality of the entire act of the section of the Rehabilitation Act. And so that is the biggest concern is, they are going straight for the jugular, they're going for the constitutionality of it, and that's a concern for everybody.
And one of our concerns is that when a lawsuit such as this is filed, it's defended by the Department of Justice. We're not confident that there will be a strong defense.
I think they said they're not taking a strong defense. And that goes with the layoffs too, so we're still kind of moving on and through some of these things. We're seeing a ton of layoffs of a lot of things, and so, again, I don't have mine. So again, there's the big picture. Millions, no, thousands of people are being laid off, right? And tens of thousands of people are being laid off, and there's a lot of thoughts in the media and about what people believe about all of that and what that means. But the reality of it is that, well, first of all, we really don't know, because everything is still happening, and it's happening so quickly, we have no idea where all the chips are falling. So, but what we do know is, with so many people losing their jobs, we don't know who's left, we don't know what their capacity is to perform the functions of the things that are required by law. And there's just no answers as to how this is, how this is going to be defended and at what level. We do know that other people and organizations can sign on with the Department of Justice as co-defendants, and that's where advocacy groups have come into this lawsuit.
I had a comment.
What's your name?
Hey, David Barry had,
Good answer.
Oh, David, sorry. Okay, so David, he hates you because he called his name. Okay. I'm sorry, David.
There you go, David.
Again, my name is David Berry, and we can get extremely technical about this whole issue if you want. But the reality is, and I want to bring it back to the little exercise we did yesterday.
Can you get in the microphone?
Yeah.
Eat that mic.
Yeah, you just need to get closer to the
Oh, okay,
microphone.
thank you. I want to bring it back to the zombie exercise we did yesterday, because this really ties into my mind. You know, until the apocalypse actually happens, all we can do is we can hope for the best, plan for the worst. We can think and know that the zombie apocalypse is coming. So what we have to do is plan for it. If it doesn't actually get here, then fantastic. We've got all the plans in place on how to deal with it when it does come. Our survival gear, our RV, it's got that, everything to it. You know, to where it's got the water filtration systems. We can have all that stuff in place ahead of time by just knowing that this is a possibility coming down the road. Not that it's reality, but it's a possibility. So all we can do is keep planning in case this apocalypse happens. In case this regime that's in now actually puts these things into place, and we end up getting screwed being part of the blind community.
Yeah,
So that's all we can do is planning, and hope for the best.
that advocacy machine that we have, that's what we're doing, and that's really kind of what we're saying. Exactly what we're saying is that we have to continue to take those advocacy steps, which means letters and phone calls and educating our elected officials, and making sure that they understand the deeper, I'm breaking it down to a technical thing because that's the way we need to understand it. Because we need to be able to explain it and educate people so they're not viewing everything. Our elected officials, they're doing things in talking points too. And we're just a tiny little blip on their radar. So we need to make sure they understand.
So, yeah, So, I'm just gonna throw out a couple of things just and try to wrap up some things. All of these layoffs, one of the ways that they affect the blindness community. I talked earlier about the Social Security Administration and their layoffs. That is a problem because it will slow down SSDI and SSI processing and payments. We talked about the Department of Education and the executive order to shut down and move certain functions to the Department of Education or out of the Department of Education. Now, we're not taking a stance on whether or not it's proper to shut down the Department of Education. What we're saying is that you need to protect the programs that are already in place, the funding sources that are in place, whether they end up in the Department of Labor, they end up in Health and Human Services. We are focused. We are a blindness organization, and we are focused on protecting the rights of blind people. We are focused on protecting the hard-won battles that we have fought over the decades to bring about changes through the legislative process. And all of that is under threat, and all of that requires the out-of-the-box thinking. All of that requires that we become, advocates, that we reach out to our senators, our legislators, our in-state legislative, representatives and senators. I mean, as Dr. Jernigan said years ago, there will come a time when we must man the barricades again. That time is upon us. And if you are a member of the organized blind movement, it is time to man the barricades.
Not against a political party, not against the Trump administration, but to man them to protect what we built. Because no one's saying, let's make sure the blind people have nothing. But again, we have to man those barricades so they don't forget that the sweeping things that are happening impact us. We're just a blip. We need to be a big, loud, colorful blip that people understand.
This is Kevin.
We're gonna go ahead and close up. But if anybody has other questions or would like to engage in further conversation, please seek us out. Whether whether it's here, directly this weekend, or via email or by phone. So thank you.
Thank you.
You know, we could.
Of course, they don't want to hear from me.
I'm not saying that
Yes,
we
because we
bad.
are going to drag
We
it
just
on
have
and
to
on
That's
be
all right.
on the lookout. We have to check our emails, not because we're trying, I'm not saying we look at the media, the news feed, but we need to see what our national leaders are telling us. For our last presentation today, we're going to hear from Joe Glover. Joe is our newest board member. He is somebody that I have known since his story began, as far as his efforts to become a teacher. I was working in North Carolina, I was working in Wilmington, and I was told that I needed to go see this young student named Joe Glover, because he was struggling and he didn't think that he was going to be able to go to make it at the university and that he should just go home. And as I remember the story, I could be wrong, go home and be a preacher. But that isn't what happened. So today, I want him to tell his own story. I'm sure you'll be moved by the power of himself and the power of people who came to his help and defense. This is Joe Glover talking about his topic, negotiating barriers to achieve a successful teaching career. Let's welcome Joe Glover.
So she's right. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Deanna and I have known each other for about 41 years. And a lot of what I'm going to tell you, she and I have gone through it together every step of the way. And I probably haven't ever thanked her personally, but she has rescued me in many areas, many, many times. So thank you so much for that. Yeah. So I grew up in St. Anthony, Idaho, which is about 40 miles north of Idaho Falls, and it was a little farming community of 3,500 people. And I had some trauma to my optic nerve, and I lost my vision in 3 days. And in a community of 3,500 people, it shook up the whole town. So if I go backwards, here's a Air Marie that I have hung on to for a really long time. Right after it happened, I was in the grocery store with my mom, and this lady from our church was shopping in there, and she looked at my mom and said, "Is this the boy?" And my mom said, "Yes, this is the boy." And she told my mom to restore my eyesight. They should put raw liver on my eyes for an hour a day to restore all of the nerve damage. And, you know, I have just been through a traumatic little experience as a little kid. And I am looking at my mom like, oh, hell no, are you going to put raw liver on my eyes? And my mom is, you know, reassuring me, no, Joe, we aren't going to ever do that to you. So anyway, that is the earliest memory of me going. So I went blind in the 70s before public blind learning programs were used. There were no IEPs back then. And my mom and dad took on the Fremont County School District and decided they would educate me. So my mom did all my accommodations and adaptations herself. She brought them to school. She laid them on our teacher's desk and sat there and made sure that they were implemented. She also jumped in and helped whenever she could. And she did that all through elementary school. And when I was in second grade, my teacher pulled my hair, called me a little brat, and told me if I would try a little harder, I could see it. And it was in second grade that I remember riding in the car with my mom, and I was telling her how I hated teaching, I hated school. And when I grew up, that I would be a teacher, and I would do a better job. So I went through public school. I graduated from South Fremont High School, and while I was growing up, I had a couple of interesting jobs. I worked in a laundry, it was fun. I worked in a furniture store. I was the guy that went in and polished all the furniture and the glass to keep the store looking nice and shiny. That was a fun job. And then I got a job in Brolam's Market. For all of you from Eastern Idaho, I worked in Brolam's Market. And I worked in the meat shop. And the only adaptations we had in place in the meat shop was the safety guides that come on the equipment that everyone was supposed to use. So I had that job for about 7 years. They actually held it for me every year in between school semesters. So I'd go home and I started college at Ricks College, which is now BYU Idaho, because it was our community college in those days. And I got an associate's degree. And it was at Ricks College where I learned about advocacy from the Idaho Commission for the Blind. Because the science department had made up their mind that they were not going to accommodate. And so the VR counselor from ICBVI, Norma Turnbow, if any of you know her, she hauled herself up to Rexburg like every other week, and she took on a biology professor many, many times. And I want you all to know that on my college transcript, I have a D+ in biology, and I am absolutely cool with that. It did not change my life one bit, and I have no interest ever in taking that class over again. And I think it was one of our scholarship winners who was talking about biology. I want you to know that I had a little PTSD when she was talking about biology, because I am not ever taking that. That was a very traumatic moment in my life. So after Ricks, I went up to U of I to pursue my bachelor's degree. And so I got up there and, I'm a small town kid and I'm 12 hours from home and I don't really have any advocacy skills. And I don't really have any self-esteem really. Because outside of what happened at Ricks and Norma Turnbow handling all of that on my behalf, I really hadn't had to advocate for myself much because it was a small town, it was safe, everybody knew me. It's pretty easy. And I got to U of I and I did not have the skills to navigate the university life. And that's when I met Dana. And Dana, I think, probably hauled herself up the hill a few times to help me out. And anyway, I did quit school. And I did go back home. And I got my job back in the store. And the store offered me the frozen food manager position. And I was thinking, cool, I'm going to be a store, a department head. It's good enough. It's all good. And one day, I was at work. And Norma Turnbow came into my store with Cub Wire. Any of you knew him?
I remember Cub.
Yeah.
And they came into my store and they asked the manager if I could go to lunch. And we went to lunch, and they were there to persuade me to go to orientation. And no, I was not going to go there. Are you kidding me? I'm going to be the frozen food guy. Are you kidding? And so then that kind of got the store behind them. I didn't even know that was happening, and they probably didn't. But that kind of got the store family behind them. And then the community kind of got in on that a little bit. And my parents, they kind of let me choose myself, actually. The only one time that I did choose myself. So I ended up going to the commission to take a tour of the commission. And it was okay. I stayed up all night pacing the floor, figuring out how I would say no. And then I flew back home, and Norma calls me, and I am trying to figure out how to tell her, no, I really like Norma, and I really liked Cub. that I was not going to orientation. So I told her I'd think about it and I might come in the fall if I So she just held me to that. And fall rolled around and boom, I was ready to go. She had it all lined up. And my boss at the store was like, "Yep, see you, Joe. We're having a birthday party for you." I wasn't really fired, but I was kind of sent out. Okay? So I went to orientation.
What year was that?
That was in 1985.
And how old were you?
So I am 61 now, so in 1985, I was like 20-ish, 21-ish. So I get there, and that was one of the most emotional, traumatic, exciting, horrifying things in my life that I have ever done. And looking back on it, it was the only time in my life I was probably really socially accepted. And I met my wife there. And you know, there were 4 or 5 of us who were about the same age, and we did a lot of college kid pranks that offended the blind community. And we didn't mean to offend the blind community, but it was really fun. And so we were there for 10 months. And when I got done, I went back home. I had my little job back. Life was good. But I had made up my mind I would be the frozen food guy, and I wasn't going to go back to school. And Couple Iron was not going to have that because he was a former teacher, and he had been a school administrator, and he was from Moscow, Idaho, and he was not going to have Moscow be a sore spot in my life. And I am pretty sure him and I met weekly for 10 months because he was going to change that if it was the last thing he did on it. So Couple One, by the time I left orientation, I was re-enrolled at the U of I, had housing set up, had the funding figured out, and you know, school started August 20 whatever, and there we were. And I wasn't terribly excited about that, but the way we went back to Moscow again. And we got back to school, and it was good. And I made the dean's list. And I get this letter in the mail from the dean of the College of Education. And I didn't even know what it was, because I had never performed that well at school before. And I didn't even know what that meant. And my mom got a copy of it and called me up on the phone and said, "Way to go, Joe." And so it took me a few minutes to figure out that was a good thing that I was on the dean's list. And so I am rolling through the U of I pretty nicely. I have learned some self-advocacy skills. I have some confidence. I have some alternatives that I got from the convention. And I'm doing okay. Life is good. Until it wasn't. And so when you are an education major, you take methods classes for the subjects you're going to teach. And because I was an elementary teacher, I took a methods class for every subject. So I was in PE methods. And it was about the 3rd day of the class. And campus security comes in. And I have an officer come in on each side of me and escort me. Because the professor was afraid that if he let a blind person pass his class, and I taught PE at some point in my life, and a student got hurt, he would be held personally liable. So he had me removed out of class. So the commission got involved. I got coalition advocates involved, and I got the dean of College of Education involved, and my advisor was involved, and it took the semester to resolve that issue. And the advice that the commission gave me was to keep doing all your homework and turn it in. So I just did everything on our syllabus, all the assignments, I turned them in. I don't remember who I turned them into, the professor would not have said. So I think I turned them into the department chair or something. Anyway, I did all the assignments. And it was finally resolved that I could have the credit for the class if I could teach a lesson. So they gave me the assignment of what I had to teach, and they brought in a classroom full of elementary kids from the Moscow School District, West Park Elementary to be specific, and I had to teach this class. And because educators have to manage paras, they brought some paras in for me to manage too. Well, that worked out pretty well because it was a class that I had already done a practicum in, so the kids already knew me, and they were all cool with the white thing, and that worked out pretty well. And one of the paras that they recruited was a reader that I had employed to read for me, so that kind of worked out nice. And I taught the lesson, and it went off well. And I didn't know this till after the fact, but I had a little audience in the back of the gym. And so here's who was in the room. There was the classroom teacher from West Park who had brought the students. There was the dean of the College of Education. There was my advisor. There was someone from the commission, and I don't know if it was covered yet. I don't remember. Yeah, okay, it was covered. Okay, so it was covered then. There was someone from the Department of Special Services on campus. The attorney from co-ed was there. And the professor who had kicked me out of class was there. And I don't know if I said this, my advisor was there. And the lesson had gone really well, and so they're all giving me a thumbs up, and the professor had nothing to say about it because he was overpowered, basically. And so I got my credit for the class. And then we're rolling through the classes, and we're almost done with school, and it was time to take the national teacher exam. And now for you guys who are ed majors, if anybody is an ed major, you take the praxis now. In those days, it was the national teacher's exam, and it was authored by the National Testing Service in Princeton, New Jersey. And, you know, it came time to take it, and you guys, for you scholarship winners, we didn't have computers then. It was done with paper and pencil, and I had a reader, and there was a proctor in the room with us, and the proctor would not allow the reader to describe the artwork, the maps, or the graphs in the math section. He would only let the reader read the questions. So guess how it turned out? I failed the national teacher's exam. Now, do you remember I told you guys I was on the dean's list? Yeah. So my advisor kind of flipped out, and he's like, "What happened?" And so the National Testing Service would not rule on it. They just ignored it. And again, I got the commission involved, that advocacy group here. And because I had done well in the College of Education, I had a lot of support from the profs in the College of Education. And I went back to see my co-ed attorney again, who we were like friends. Finally, my advisor just decided he was going to handle it himself. And thank goodness he did, because the National Testing Service, I don't think they ever did respond ever. And so he found his own proctor. He set the test up. I got a different reader, and the proctor was told by the advisor that the reader will read anything he asks him to, period. So the reader was allowed to describe the artwork to me, the graphs, the maps, you know, all that stuff to me. And then I could answer the questions, and then I was able to pass the national teacher's exam, and then I got my certification.
Yay!
So now here's the final test of college. So Cindy and I had decided together, because both of us were ed majors, that we would student teach in Boise, because of job opportunities.
And we were married by this time.
And we were married at that point. So we got assigned with a husband and wife teaching team at Garfield Elementary. And the husband and wife, so teachers go in and start the school year a couple of weeks, yeah, feels like a couple of weeks early every year to decorate the room, do the cleaning, do all the meeting stuff and all that. So Cindy and I are working with our cooperating teachers, and the wife who Cindy was assigned to told her that they had discussed it and decided they were going to pass this, even though we hadn't taught one lesson yet, and the kids had not taken it. They had a preconceived notion about us being in charge of the classroom. So school started, the kids came. Cindy and I had some adventures with that first couple of weeks. The gentleman that I was student teaching with, he would come into the back of the classroom and he would pull the chairs out from under the kids to cause chaos in the back of the room to see if I could figure out how to handle it, because I couldn't see what was going on in the back of the classroom. And down the hall, Cindy's cooperating teacher is teaching longitude and latitude wrong, and Cindy had to go over what she taught. So we were not the favorite in the world. And so there was a lady that taught across the hall from my classroom, and she was watching all this fiasco. And I didn't even know this was happening. She called the College of Education in Moscow, and she filed a complaint against her colleagues for the way these white people were being treated. And so, you guys, it's really emotional for me. 40 years later, it's really emotional. I apologize for that.
It's okay.
So our U of I supervisors started coming a lot more often to the supervisors. So at the end of the 9 weeks, he pulled us into Garfield's library, and he said, "I have 2 sets of evaluations here. I have your cooperating teachers." And he took them out of the folder and ripped them in. He gave us his, and then he reassigned us to 2 other classrooms. And then we got through student teaching, and we were done, and it was in December. And then Dana hired Cindy to be the home ec teacher at the commission, which incidentally, Dana, it kept us out of living in the homeless shelters.
Oh.
So thank you for that. So then the principal at Garfield hired me to be an aide the rest of the school year, which actually really surprised me that he hired me to be the aide. And it was fine because it's nearly impossible to find a teaching job in the middle of the school year. So then spring rolled around, and I started applying in all of Treasure Valley for a teaching position. And I applied in Boise, Meridian, Kuna, Nampa, Middleton, Wilder, Homedale, all those places. Okay? And I got a call from a school in Boise School District at Kelch Elementary, which is out in West Boise. And in those days, you didn't interview with the committee, you interviewed with the principal. And the principal sat on her rolling chair, and she would scoot around in the office, and then she would wave her arms to see if I flinched or tracked with her or did anything. And you guys, now I would own her. Then I was sure I could talk my way through. But now I would do that so differently. But anyway, I had a couple of those things happen through interviews. But I did get a job in Wilder, Idaho. And I had a pretty awesome principal and a pretty supportive superintendent. But here's the kicker. Cindy and I were staff residents of the commission. So I lived at 341 West Washington Street, and I worked 40 miles away. That was a little bit of a trouble. So thanks to Dana and a couple of other staff members at the commission, we got me a driver lined up, and The driver would take me to Cloverdale and Overland at 6:30 in the morning, drop me off in a mud puddle, literally, and I would pick up a carpool of teachers who taught in Wilder. And then we would come home, my carpool would drop me off at the mud puddle again, and then my driver would pick me up. And I want you to know that that was really an expensive process, because I was paying about 2/3 of our teacher's salary out in driver service and carpool fee. But I had to do it, because I had to get that experience, had to prove to myself and to the world I could teach elementary school. In general education, and be in charge of sighted kids. With sighted parents in a sighted school environment, right? So I had to do it. So I did that for 3 years. And, it was a fiasco, it was absolutely a fiasco. But I never missed school one time because of transportation. I never missed school once. And so then Cindy and I bought a home in Caldwell, and we moved out to Caldwell. And she commuted in on the ACHD commuter van, and I still rode in the carpool, except though it eliminated having that driver in the middle. So I was teaching out in Wilder, and life was good, but Wilder is a small rural school, and it was still not convenient. It was still not convenient. And I really thought that I deserved a job in my zip code. I really felt strongly about that. So I started applying for a teaching position in the Caldwell School District. And I feel pretty comfortable using the names of the school districts, because I did not ever sign a non-disclosure act about any of this, so I'm okay to say this. But so again, you guys, we did the application paper and pencil. And so I would do the application, and I would mail it in, and I would get a return card. It was a green card that somebody at the Caldwell District Office would sign saying they had received it. And I've always been a guy that keeps copies and binders and indexes everything and keeps track of everything. That's who I am. I'm very much a type A person. So I had all these records of my application that I would keep sending in to Caldwell School District. And so I would also call the University of Idaho and send our confidential placement file in and my transcripts in. And U of I has a type A personality and kept records of every time I would send those things to Caldwell School District. And this went on for a while. And I wasn't getting a job interview. And Deanna knew the assistant superintendent. And Deanna called him and said, I got a teacher here that I want to bring into teaching. So Deanna scheduled this interview with the assistant superintendent. And her and I go meet him. It went well. We kind of chatted a little bit. He asked me a few questions. It was kind of informal interview, chit-chat session. It was very nice. And when we left, he said to us, there's no reason you're not working here. We will process this through and get you on the manifest and get you a job. And it never happened. It never happened. And so Sandy Streeter's husband, Larry, was the state president of the Federation at that point. And he worked for the State Department of Education. And he was like, there has to be something in your file that is keeping you from getting a job. So Larry was able to get my file from the U.S. And he went through it, and I gave him the application registry. And he's like, it's perfect. There's not a reason you're not working. Everything's good. Sort of simultaneously when that's happening, our neighbor turned out to be the PTO president of one of the schools. And she mentioned to our neighbor in the school that I was looking for a teaching job. And that principal said to her, she goes, and I'm not sure where this falls into this whole mess, but principal needed wild caught that observation. And we decided that maybe after the comment that she had made, file kept showing up at the HR office. And they would kept speaking to this lady named Gloria, who later becomes an ally. Gloria would tell me, Joe, your file is incomplete. And we did this for a few years. We were playing this game. And so Larry and Sandy and Anna, and I don't even know who else was involved because there were so many people advocating for me. Larry hooked me up with the Idaho Human Rights Commission and the EEOC in St. Louis. And you guys, I want you to know that all the people who helped me are truly heroes. And an investigation was launched, and they found probable cause for discrimination. And at that time, Caldwell School District was going through some growing changes. There was some admin who was retiring out, and there were some new folks who were coming in kind of at the same time. So when this legal issue was going on, the new superintendent was coming on board, and he said, well, we're going to change the interview process and see if you can get hired on. So the first time I met the assistant superintendent, knew my Caldwell School District office. And I hired my own attorney, and they had their attorney, and the Idaho Human Rights Commission attorney was there, and someone from the commission was with me, I don't remember who. And the assistant superintendent, and we were at a big long conference table, and it was my team against his team, basically. We were like a eye-to-eye person to person. And so anyway, I started getting interviews. I got an interview at Van Buren Elementary. I got an interview at Washington Elementary. I got offered both jobs. And then the number, and Van Buren Elementary offered me the position first, and I accepted it. And then the numbers at Van Buren did not pan out. So I was an involuntary transfer to Wilson Elementary, which was 2 blocks from my house. And so I taught at Van Buren Wilson for 18 years. And while I taught there, I became the union president, and I did that not because I was really so much a union person, although I am now, but I really wanted the opportunity to advocate for their people, the way that people have advocated. And there is an evil part of me. I did like the fact that was the Caldwell School District dealing with me as a union president on a daily basis. So I was the union president for 20 years, and I was on our negotiations team most of that time. And so when we would have to have any kind of that meeting, I was the one that would schedule them, and I would schedule them on my turf in my classroom so that all the admin had to travel to me. Because they could drive, I couldn't, so I just scheduled them in my school. And so they dealt with the blind guy for 20 years. So at the end of year 18, I changed schools. I moved over to Lincoln Elementary, and I ended my career with them in 2022 as a retiree. But through all of that, so then at the end, I did end up with a quasi-admin position. I was the director of the summer school, and I still had a classroom that I did all the summer school stuff. I hired the staff for summer school. I supervised them. I managed the curriculum, the budget. I did all that the last few years I was a teacher. And I also was the union guy, and I served on the board for the IA, and I did all of this. So to close all that up, so all that stuff happened, and looking back on it, it was all stupid. It was stupid. The PE class, the NTE test, the throwing my application in the garbage, that it was stupid stuff that happened. But if I hadn't have had the support groups from the University of Idaho, the Commission for the Blind, and the National Federation of the Blind, I would not have been able to have achieved any of those things that I achieved in those 33 years.
And you didn't give up.
I would have been the frozen food guy at Burling's Market.
Yeah.
And, I've been okay with that. I mean, there is no shame in that job. But remember, I decided when I was in second grade I was going to be a teacher.
Yeah.
So that's where the loss would have been, because I would have given up on my dream. So, and there is one thing Cindy told me I had to tell her I forgot. So when I got my job in the grocery store, and I worked in the meat shop, the first day I worked there, whole fryer chickens were on sale, and whole fryers used to come in a case of ice, and you had to pull them out of the ice, and you had to bag them up and press them and put them out on the floor. And so the floor in the butcher shop was just wet and slippery and ice. And, I'm a blind guy in a butcher shop, it was weird, right? And then I fall down in the ice, and I fall in the garbage can. And they kept me anyway, worked out. And so anyway, the point of all this is that for all of us, whether we are at retirement age or we're our scholarship recipients this year, it is really necessary for us as a minority group of blind people to build a community of support. Because as I said yesterday, we are all dealing with the same issues. And we all learn at our own age. And without us representing each other, supporting each other, advocating for each other, and we're doing that every day, just living at home in our communities. We are doing that. But we have to have our support groups. And so for our scholarship recipients, I was really impressed with all of you guys who had letters from your professors and your high school teachers, because you have started to build that community group already. And they all said wonderful things about all of them. And we have to have this group, we have to have those other groups. The commission played a huge part in my success. The NFB played a part in my success. The professors at the U of I played a part in it. I could never have done that without any of them. And my mom, thank goodness for taking on the Fremont County School District. She was not liked. And it's okay. She was okay with it. I was okay with it. But she was respected. So anyway, that is our journey that I have been through. And it has been a crazy, wild ride. And every month when the retirement check rolls into the bank, I am so unbelievably grateful, I can't even tell you. And I don't even go down the street anymore and look at my old school. The first year I was out, I was like in thrall. And now I can just cruise by there. I'm making a glance over there. I don't even care. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity.
Well done, John.
Thank you, guys.
Watch out for all your dogs though, because Joe will be his best friend. He or she's best friend. On Joe.
Oh, I was handed it. Oh, there you go. Okay, thanks.
All right, this was a good